Hello and welcome to the 2025 European League, this time for the final deciding day ahead of the playoffs. My name is Evan, and I'm joining Seishizo at the virtual desk. Say, how are you, man?
I'm doing very well, definitely very stoked once again to be casting this tournament. Unfortunately, yesterday couldn't make it, there were some technical issues. However, we are here today and we're going very fast straight into the action.
Oh, yeah, and it is a lot of action today for folks in chat. This is the big one, guys. I said it at the top of the show. This is the last opportunity for our players to earn points before they go into the playoffs. Folks are playing to try to get the highest seed possible in the bracket upcoming. So there's a lot on the line, Say.
Yeah, absolutely, because we just checked it earlier while we're rehearsing and stuff. So you can get a good buy for being top 2. You can actually get all the way to round 3 right away. If you are making it to the top 4, I think we were looking at it that you even skip the first round. So there's a lot of options right there. And looking at this leaderboard, once again, it is stacked, but it's also very close to one another. Between rank 3 and all the way down to rank 10, there's just 3 points. Technically today, you could grab up 4 points. So even Bespoon could make it all the way a jump from rank 10 to top 3.
And that is crazy. There's so much room for shakeups here today. I think a lot of these players have already impressed us a ton. We talked about it a little bit before the show too, but we were saying how surprised we were. Malignant taking so many games, so many points, and also Pinkroid being one of the most just consistent players in the region.
Yeah, absolutely. But we also start off right away with a banger. We have Bespoon and Scribble. Well, Scribble, he needs no introduction. He's always there, streaming at night, European time. But then again, Bespoon, he's been showing a lot of LDs right there as well. What are some of the other names that would stand out for you, Evan?
Well, I'm really excited to watch Slaix play because, like you highlighted, Slaix is actually a G2 that kind of made it up here, but you wouldn't know it based on the quality of games and the fact that he's ranked at number 3 right now.
Yep, absolutely. But right now we have Bespoon against Scribble. So this is going to be the big question. Has Scribble once again just diverted from his whole draft and running up something completely different? He actually made the interesting play before. He does have the Hong. Normally he plays a lot of the Hong, but the first week that he started playing, he didn't even have Hong ruined at all. But it was still pre-banned against him, which is one of those tactics Scribble really likes to switch up his bugs. On the other side, Bespoon, we have seen him play pretty much the similar kind of style. It's mainly based on that light Gojo and then following up with the LDs that he likes to fit with those. They're definitely taking their time for pre-ban, so they're either not really sure yet or they're just trying to find a unit that is not that common.
The light Gojo, like you mentioned there, Say, that is one that has kind of impressed me recently. So let's see if, and it seems to have impressed Scribble as well. And like you highlighted, the Hong is in the pre-ban. Say, what are the odds that Scribble's got that rune today?
I definitely do think those are pretty high right now. He has been switching a little bit back and forth, but let's see. If he picks a Sierra first pick right now, he is definitely going to be playing around that Hong because it's mostly just a combination that's good. Actually going for a Segment first pick. We also have seen that in the Legend tournament before.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, the Oliver Sekhmet Jongnam was kind of what we affectionately called the Holy Trinity of the season, though notably Jongnam and also that Laura that Bespoon just locked in both appeared in the balance patch.
Yep, but also something that appeared in the balance patch, but not the current one, but the prior one, which is that Cigar. However, Scribble still likes that unit. Mostly it is still paired with a Water Twin Angels. Maybe he's looking for that right now, because then you can lower the cooldown, and it's still similar to a Cigar prior to that nerf. But let's see what he goes for Sweet Lead. He does go for the Water Twin Angels.
Oh, that's a good one. One of the most picks. Oh, he's thinking about it, and he opts for the Chandra instead, going for a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Seasons past, mixing Holy Trinities together. We see Bespoon answer back with an Audrey and a Vertihile.
Interesting picks right there, but I definitely do like them because on the enemy side, you already see 3 AoE hits. Now added with a Phalantus, a number 4. A Vertihile, while you say it's like, oh, I need to have that counter on that first moment, that 45 check, then it's a little bit risky. But if there's all units on the enemy side going for AoE hits, at some point the Vertihile will take that counter and it's just a good way of just pacing that match. Also, we have a lock-in of that Sierra and a Seimei on the other side.
You know, I was going to say that for Bespoon, it's a little early post balance patch, but in that Seimei slot, a Win Nobara or Aya could have actually been a really good pick there, but instead Bespoon opted for the impactful Seimei, which is kind of the inverse of that. Fans go out, speed leads are chosen. Here we go, Say, we're going into the first set, day 7 here at the Summoners War European League.
Let's see, we have Segment taking the first turn. Does she connect? She does actually connect. And Oliver takes a very awkward turn at this moment. If you do any of your skills right now, you can still opt to do a skill 2 because your skill 3 will lower the cooldown on that. And you can do a little bit more chip damage. But then again, that's a little bit nitpicking. But let's see how much this Vert can do. Or do you even decide to go for AoEs?
Sometimes those minutia, those small decisions end up making or breaking a game. Let's see what ends up happening here. Verd decides to just kind of stay sleeping there. Man is a statue, not counterattacking. We get one in, and I think he landed one crit in there, say.
Yeah, we don't have the crits right there, but also that artery, we have seen it before in the league, it is on revenge as well. And the amount of damage that she does is actually an insane amount because she has a defense buff. But then again, something that's also doing a lot of damage is that Chandra taking out that Oliver.
Huge, man. That change over to Chandra ended up confirming Scribble a kill there. Very impressive swap from the Water Twin Angels. It's almost like he saw this in advance.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the amount of debuffs that are on the units right now. Sure, the Audrey's trying to take those counters. Normally she would be healing, but there's also that heal block. We have a segment that landed as if she was an FDs, except for that reset just there. But I don't think that at this position it matters all too much. We go in for a defense. Can we take out a unit? We go for the skill 3. A little bit more chip damage, but that's a good amount of chip damage right there.
Oh yeah, confirmed kill on the Verd thanks to the dots. Laura within dot range as well. That win goes to Scribble Bibbles.
Yeah, once again, very well played. Also showing that speed contesting definitely does work out. And where Bestpoon actually had a little bit of an awkward draft. Sure, the Laura was a good setup for that Oliver. But if the Laura was contested, in this case it was by that segment, Oliver took a full turn into full immunity, and then just nothing happens altogether. So Bestpoon had a little bit too much of both worlds with taking turn 1 and taking turn 2, but it didn't really work out.
And that's such a tough break. Scribble, again, seeing into the future here, banning the Sekhmet, knowing that he's not going to have access to it if Bestpoon wants to contest it in that first pick slot.
Yep, in this case, we do once again go for that Gojo first pick. So definitely with that Laura potential right now, he will have to AoE strippers. Then let's see what Scribble would go for. He does go at, yep, the Yan Hong is definitely root in this case.
You called it, man. We saw the CR earlier. That was foreshadowing for Yan Hong's arrival. Bestpoon answering back with Mi Ying, who's been an extremely popular unit following his buff in the second to last balance match.
Yeah, absolutely a really strong unit and also very strong against stunts. And there's a lot of options for stunts already. And Bestpoon is showing a lot of LD favor on that draft on the left side right there. Locking it in with that ragdoll as well, or not locked in just yet, but that is a very difficult draft to face off to.
No way, man. We are getting Nyx the sequel in the Dark Hacker. That is crazy. Super interesting passive that limits the number of debuffs to 2 and more. He's super fun unit. You don't always get to see it in a tournament setting. And then Scribble closing out, thinking about locking in an Oberon. That'd be very aggressive, say.
Yeah, definitely. But it's also going to be the question, where can it take a turn? And it's going to be taking a turn at the right moment. Because if you take out that... Ooh, it's actually going to be taking that out right away. So that's going to be a lot of bruiser heavy. So curious to see what happens in this match.
This might be a good opportunity for Bestpoon to take this back. Would love to see what folks in chat have to say. Who are you rooting for? Who you got going into this game? It was the last round between these two in the best of 2 format. Last chance for Bestpoon to get points on the board.
Yeah, let's see how much this robot can do. And also the big question, how much do you crit? Is the Phalanx going to do something? Phalanx does actually do something, and there were a decent amount of crits. And Phalanx is doing a lot of work with those provokes.
Volantis already carrying the team. Barely even took 1 turn, but somehow it looks like he's taken 3. He's getting counterattacks. He's stunning all over the place. Where is Ciara going to put this bomb?
Well, also goes for that Phalantis, but that is 2 debuffs, and 2 debuffs does mean that you're taking less damage as well. Plus, we have an AoE coming in from Virus. Armor breaks is what we're looking for, and we got a... Well, actually not that many armor breaks, but still enough chip damage to make that work for Miying coming in later.
And look at this, man. If Bestpoon had a window to close in this match, this is it. Tons of debuffs in play. He's got protection coming out. He's got a counterattack buff on Mi Ying. This is looking pretty favorable for Spoon.
Absolutely, because the moment that a Scribble would take down 1 or 2 units, he still has to fight that Miying, and that unit is just simply so powerful. The only unit that can potentially take it out is that Sierra, but Sierra is something that we're gonna say goodbye due to those dots.
And this is looking like Bestpoon is able to get that last point that he needed. Scribble did a great showing in that first round, but now Bestpoon just answered back so well, say.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is also the difficult thing in the pre-ban itself. Scribble decided to go for pre-ban on a segment, but there's so many LDs that it's also at some point the question, which of the many LDs should you be banning out? Because there's just too many options.
Exactly. I mean, that draft from Best Spoon was wild, man. We had a 5 LD draft, and you're caught between a Volantis and a hard place. Like, what do you decide? Going if you were Scribble in that game, say, what would you have prioritized as the ban?
I'm not too sure about the if you I would go all the way for also a Robo plus a Zibala in that slot 3 and 4, because at that point you kind of lock yourself in. It's like, okay, we're really going for this. And you do know that your enemy does have units such as a Valantis, such as a Ragdoll, such as a Nyx, but then a Nyx with a 1, then a Nyx with a Y. So there's a lot of options right there, which you maybe don't really want to play into. And then a bruising setup that you had last time around maybe worked out a little bit better.
You heard it here, folks. I better than Y. Nyx part 2. He's a pretty important, man. Limiting those debuffs and also providing a little bit of damage reduction too. Like, pretty incredible. It was a fun pick and it ended up working out for him. Maybe that'll help us see more of that Dark Hacker in the future. So we ended in a 1-1 situation. That's a draw for these players. What are you anticipating going forward for these guys?
Well, actually, Bestbone has his match coming up pretty soon as well, so he doesn't have that much time to prepare. However, Jossu does have time to see that match that just happened, so it's always the question of like, okay, how much can you prepare against one another with the following match to come? However, first we're going to be playing with 2 French players duking it out against one another, with we having Slaix and Unarmed.
This is going to be a big one. So we're familiar with Slaix. We talked about how exciting it is that he was a G2 coming into this game and performing as if he's top G3, getting those points to get to number 3 in the leaderboards. Tell me about what we've seen from Unarmed so far, Say.
Unarmed is what we have seen a lot based on Vanessa playstyle. So Vanessa playstyle into single target snipe. So then we're talking about Adriana comes into a Narsha, Sonia's, all of those kind of good units. But we've also noticed it in the last few days. Unarmed struggles a lot more if he doesn't have that Vanessa. So in this case, Slaix could play the game of when you have Vanessa open, you pick it first. When the enemy has the first pick, you ban it. So in both cases, Unarmed cannot play with a pivotal unit. But let's see what they go for.
And that's a pretty easy flex pick to steal away from your opponent too, because honestly, Vanessa is very rarely bad into a comp, being such a neutral unit with a 33% lead, a little bit of revive, and like you pointed out, for a snipe comp, you can open somebody up, put a clutch little defense break in. Slaix ultimately takes Ciara first.
Yeah, take Ciara first, so that does give the option to Unarmed to get that Vanessa. But then again, you could also be preparing a very strong comp against that. However, that Athena Arena being shown there makes it maybe a little bit difficult. In this case, you definitely would have to be looking at something towards the likes of a Heigang, because Vanessa and Athena both work on a strip plus doing something else, and therefore a Heigang becomes really strong.
That's a good choice, man. A Heigang is oftentimes a very potent pick into stuff. Even if you only see these 2 units, I don't think he'd be wrong for it. Oh, and he brings the Tetsuo, the Fire Megumi, who appeared in the most recent patch, now stealing a buff as well as gaining more attack bar when you attack allies, and a very threatening Zeratul.
Yeah, it's definitely a good unit to be picking up right now against Athena, because after skill 2 of Athena, you will definitely be taking turns, and also a lot of turns as well. So I'm curious to see how good this unit will do. But then again, Unarmed is going for a full set of a snipe still, so that is looking at a Draco and probably some single target snipe following up on this. No, actually taken away, going for more AoE hits. Interesting.
Oh, and we were just talking about Bella before the tournament today. That swap over to the Nikki to the Bella, what do you think about that? Do you find it to be a little bit less volatile into this game?
Well, I'm not too sure about it, because I think Unarmed wasn't too sure on his draft, and then he maybe just comes back to something as like, okay, this might also work. A Water Monkey, the Shiho, is actually an interesting unit as well. It now has more stun chance. So actually a bunch of the units that were in that previous balance patch are now being picked up. And we have Slaix notifying where there's a lot of single target strips, but there's probably not a chance for Unarmed to deal with all of the units on the side of Slaix. So he utilizes that and then goes for more damage overall, trying to win maybe a 3v4 potential. Unarmed does see that with a Chiu in that final pick, but that might be banned out right there.
It could be, because that actually could be so powerful that it gives Unarmed the opportunity to 2-for-1 on the side of Slaix right here. Love the representation of the Shiho. Shiho is We jokingly refer to Shiho as the dev's favorite monster. Man just sits there and appears in balance patches. It's incredible. Someone up there loves the Water Monkey King.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see if he makes it into the match, because in the end, it has a lot of multi-hits. So with additional damage artifacts on attack speed and HP, you can still dish out a lot of damage with the cycling as well. Actually does not make it into the match.
That went down to the wire. Both of those players took a while to decide on those bans. I imagine that Slaix probably locked down the Chiwu pretty early. Let's see how this ultimately goes. We're already in match number 2 here on day 7 of the Summoners War European League. Let's see who takes turn 1.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. We have a Nikki taking first turn, so that Atlas going to be either Despair or Violent, but you only strip one. Now you have to be stripping the right thing. Does actually manage to strip the right thing and actually gives immunity to itself.
Megumi, so smart, selectively targeting the immunity. Genius! And now Unarmed is going to be feeding him some attack bar. That's why that passive is so goated on that unit, because you don't always want to be attacking directly into a support unit. This Zeratul, though, he is about to bite the dust.
Yeah, absolutely. But as mentioned in the draft, Slaix did notify that, sure, Unarmed can take down 1 or 2 units, but you also have to be taking down this Asima over here, because Asima right now can do a lot of damage, followed up by that Sierra. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough to kill things right away, but it's already a lot of work right there. Actually did not manage to stun the Nikki, which might be pretty bad.
It could be. I'm thinking that could be 15%. It's slightly obscured. That right there is going to secure the kill on its upkeep. As soon as Vanessa's passive, or rather the third skill, is going to go down, and so Nikki will get brought back to life.
Well, the thing is, if there was a stun right there, you could have used the skill tune that Asima, because then you just go for more hits altogether, and you maybe would have cared a little bit less. Ooh, actually good hit on that Megumi, taking an additional turn, and that Nikki will die right now because the Vanessa passive just got activated. So let's see if this Megumi is doing a lot of work.
Yeah, there is still game to be had here. I was so confident that Unarmed was going to be able to take this even after that first bomb from Ciara, but these 2 units might be all he needs to bring this back.
Yeah, let's see. Focus shot, doing a good amount of damage right there, landing a good amount of debuffs as well. But then again, is this going to be enough? Because a Vanessa in most cases is not going to be soloing anything right now, especially not if she's being stunned.
No way. Did Slaix just weather the storm? Ciara missed the bomb, but frankly, that is not the deciding factor in this match, I don't think, because we've got turn cycling, we have proc potential. That's another bomb opportunity. Ends up being 2 dots, and Unarmed scoops. Slaix took it back.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one, and that is utilizing the draft where you see, like, okay, my enemy doesn't really have more than just full-on damage on one target. And sure, I use that unit and I just lose it right away. But it is fine. The other 3 units can clean up. And that Megami, with that start on straight going on to that immunity, is very crucial.
It was. Honestly, that 50-50 was gigantic for Slaix. Kudos to him. He weathered the storm. Unarmed brought a lot of damage and got those early kills that made me think he had it from the start. But Slaix was confident and cool-headed. It's so important in tournament settings to not scoop. You know that better than anybody, Say. It's like, in tournament settings, you stick around.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this case, once again, we have a Sekhmet being respected as one of the dominant units right now. So we saw a little bit of Jongnam being pre-banned in prior days, but right now, Sekhmet seems to be one of those units that people just don't want to be facing.
Sekhmet always makes me laugh when I see her in a pre-ban, just because she is one of the most picked units right now, and rightfully so. But people hate her because you miss that third skill. That's the game going down the drain with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Unarmed really showing what kind of draft style he's going in right away. Because Nephthys, in 99% of the cases, is paired with 2 AoE strippers. So this is a potential where you could go for a very early Heigang, and you're most likely looking at a fine match. But then again, you can also go for just a Sierra and a Chiho.
Heigang, and I'm calling it now. I'd love to see an Aya or a Win Nobara. That'd be very fun to see. I don't know if we'll get it this early in the tournament, but I'm expecting to see one at least at some point today.
That's an interesting playstyle as well, and that would have actually countered that Heigang. A Tiana, if you go for Tiana skill 3, it doesn't matter what the Heigang does, because the Tiana boost most likely will give your team a turn, and everyone has no buffs at that moment. So definitely an interesting playstyle over there. But then again, if Slay goes for something very fast right now, looking at an Atna, looking at a Sonya, Speed Leads, those kind of units would definitely take out the side of Unarmed because they're not going to be super fast.
Well, in a great start, yeah, Slay made a really good adjustment there. It's like you said, something super fast base speed, good setup. Ultimately, an Etna and a Kovarchi is exactly what the doctor ordered. Let's see what Unarmed brings against that. Still got time on the clock. We're seeing a return of the Chiwu that soaked up a ban last time, say.
Yep, Chiwa, and I'm definitely thinking about any other unit that also has a Speed Awakening, but that is definitely a unit without a Speed Awakening, but also something we haven't seen too much. But actually, Unarmed is trying to do the reverse to Slay right now. Sure, you might be able to take out 1 or 2 units, but can you take out 3 very crucial targets?
Oh, this is going to be brutal. No matter no matter what gets through here, we're in for a fast game right now. These players have made it abundantly clear that they want nothing to do with each other in this round. They just want to knock out the enemy team as quickly as humanly possible. We're waiting to see what the ban is. It's taking a little bit of time, man. What would you prioritize here, say?
I would definitely still go for that Chivo. On the other side, I think the Kovachi is very smart as well, because that is the importance for adding in a lot of damage. So let's see how much that Etna does, and also if the Tiana moves right after that.
Oh, yeah, and you're so right, man. Attack buff is nothing to scoff at. 50% additional attack is wild. That is the facilitator. Let's see what happens. So we knew Etna was going, and it looks like the Shiho is following closely after.
Yeah, interesting to see. So the Chi was also on Swift. Also, the Etna did not connect a single armor break. It was not even resisted. It just simply did not activate. So skill 3 going in. It's definitely under 50% HP, taking it out.
Nice. That's exactly what Slay needed. It took a little bit of pause when he noticed there weren't any defense breaks on the table. Shiho showing off the results of the balance patch and getting an early stun on Nefties. Slay making it abundantly clear that he wants this second point.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you stun one of those strippers and the only stripper is there, sure, the Beth could do a decent amount of work. Even if there would be an additional turn on that Seraph right now, I think that Slay has this in the back.
Oh, what a statement game this was, man. This was the last time we saw Slay. He weathered the storm, took his time, wanted to go into the mid game. This one, he was like, nah, I'm going to cleave.
Yeah, very interesting. But also, that's the thing about the Shiho. People are not too familiar with that unit yet. As in, like, okay, how is it working in current meta? How is it working in the current balancing? Plus, is it Swift or is it Violent? Because it's one of those units that can't be both.
Yeah, that's a good point. And honestly, the speed that we saw it there, right? I feel like anybody would say it's on Swift. And I actually do like a Swift monkey because you don't accidentally proc out of the invincibility. That is like honestly, if you've ever seen a bad violent proc, you've probably seen it on a Shiho. That has a huge opportunity to lose you a game, and he has built-in turn cycling regardless, say.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, he has the highest chance of stunning right now. We did see it on that Nefties as well. Nefties did actually take that turn, but because she was stunned by that monkey moving first, if it was Violet, it might have not been the case if that Nefties was pretty fast itself as well. So it's definitely one of those units. Plus, it has a very high base speed, so all of that just stacks more towards Swift.
Yeah, good point. Well, Slay made it a dominant performance, got 2 points out of the 2 possible in that matchup. We'll be seeing more from Slay later. He is playing like a top G3 right now, even as a G2 in this whole setup here, say.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's look at the bracket who we have coming up next. Once again, we go back to Best Spoon. So Best Spoon has a very early show, and then he can just take a break and see what the other people play. But on the other side, we have Jossu, and Jossu has also been showing a lot of very specific LDs, mainly in the first few days of the league, where we was getting in that Lucifer on Swift, drafting a lot of Oniyuki, going in with that Kovachi, also likes his silver, so there's a lot of options for him there. But then on the other side, we have Bestbone that just simply showed a full LD draft in that match earlier.
I loved watching Best Spoon's draft. That's the sort of content pick draft that you don't always get to see in tournaments, and I loved watching him take it. Because the thing about drafts like that, they're very fun and impactful, but you're also not stealing a lot of those very meta picks from your opponent. You're oftentimes giving them their draft. So you're taking a big risk with it, but it's always fun to watch. Here we go, guys. Pre-bans going out here. Jossu's been watching the same games we have, banning out that Light Gojo.
Yeah, absolutely. That like Gojo is very pivotal for Bespun to just have a very comfortable draft that he always likes to do on the leaderboards as well. On the other side, the Kovachi, it's not something that Joss always uses, but that Miying is, I think, also a steal because I think Jossu does also have the Miying, or he has the Zeratul, or he has both. I'm not 100% sure anymore.
But he opts instead for the Water Twin Angels here and the newly buffed Okeanos. We were just talking about that before the tournament, say.
Yeah, the Okeanos, I was just checking a little bit of win rates, but Okeanos is actually having a pretty good win rate right now. And maybe that is due to his skill too, having twice the amount of chance right now to land that increased cooldown, which is very crucial. Then again, we also do see that Jongnam coming back, which is slightly nerfed at the moment.
Yeah, he lost that attack bar cycling, which was a big facet of his kit, but he still has the AoE stun. He's got the heal. He has true damage on skill 2. So the man is still a monster in play. We just saw a little bit of an adjustment. Best Spoon here, considering, okay, changing instead to a Juno. I like the Juno up against all this aggression, all this lockdown, and she also offers a nice strip.
Yeah, I definitely do like the Juno over here. The Gojo's maybe a little bit more in an awkward position, but it's definitely one of those units. There's a lot of pushback on your enemy side. I would say all 4 units actually do have some kind of form of pushback, and that makes the Gojo just shine a little bit more because it cannot be pushed back.
Oh, and the Shiho, those bans were way faster. I'm telling you, Best Spoon probably watched the last game and saw the Shiho, how impactful that was. I'm a big believer in banning that because that monkey can actually like take a game back when you don't expect it.
Yeah, let's see. We actually have the Twin Angels outspeeding a very fast unit right now because there's no speed lead on the side of Best Spoon. So let's see what Jossu can utilize with this.
Looks like gets an early strip on the Water Gojo. Okeanos has the chance to... He Sekhmeted the Sekhmet. He did it. Okeanos put her on cooldown time, and now all she can do is apply some attack break. Jongnam coming in for the lockdown. 2 stuns as soon as Juno gets a turn, but still...
Still a lot of effort, but then again, the Juno, the moment she starts cycling, the moment she gets her turns in, that is 3 debuffs that are going to be transferred towards heal, and it's full HP on the whole team again. So that's kind of starting off from 0, so let's see how much you can work with that.
It's making me wonder how Jossu's going to get rid of that Juno. I think the true damage on skill 2 from Jongnam is probably the only opportunity, barring a defense break setup into Okeanos skill 2. I think those are the 2 paths to get rid of the Juno, but it's otherwise going to be a big threat for him, say.
Yeah, absolutely, because in general, it's just a really good unit into that Silver, because Silver, all it does is actually provide debuffs and a little bit of immunity. But the immunity part, Juno is also very good against, so... Let's see how much he can do, because he's taking a lot of turns, but nothing is happening too much to the HP bars of your enemy.
That's the thing. I'm so glad you said that, because, yeah, a lot has happened. Jossu's kind of dry right now in terms of skills. Most folks are on cooldown, but Best Spoon is still looking like the game just started. In fact, he's looking even better because of the buffs on his monsters.
Yeah, absolutely, and we can just see the skill 1 damage coming in. Also, the Gojo has good additional damage artifact right there. It does always have a defense buff, so the defense scaling from your add damage by defense helps in a lot. Additional turn on that Okeanos. Once again, are we going to Sekhmet the Sekhmet? We do Sekhmet the Sekhmet right there.
He did it. Yeah, this is a tough spot for Jossu here, because while I agree with the ban on the Oliver, because the Oliver shuts down what you're trying to do, Juno is just the perfect counter to everything in play.
Yeah, absolutely. And that Gojo's taking turns, it's stunning as well. The Miying is there at the right moments, providing the little bit of healing that he does, because in the end, the healing that comes is also for a big part by that Miying. And every time you stun it, when it's actually having the cooldowns available, it's just going to be healing a little bit as well. So it's definitely a lot of units. Like, even if you get rid of the Juno right now, that Miying is still hard to deal with as well.
And unfortunately, I think what we may have just seen was the best attempt at getting rid of the Juno, because we saw all the debuffs on. We saw Jongnam reduce full 60% attack bar from her, and it still wasn't enough to bring her down below 100%.
Yep, and also that Miying, it's just doing so much work. There's just so many debuffs being converted into healing every time. There's also, once again, a double heal over time on all of the units, which is just simply a lot of healing as well.
So, looking ahead, I know the game's not over, stuff can happen, but I'm really unsure about how he takes down the Juno. Looking ahead here, say, how does Jossu need to prepare? What would you like him to change?
I think he has to go for a different playstyle than going for a Silver Jongnam kind of style. It was really good if you do have that Oliver, if you do have potential pushbacks, then it definitely does work. Then you can take out Miying, then you can take out the Juno potentially as well. But the moment you don't have the Oliver for a setup to actually push back enough, it's just going to be difficult to work your way around.
Jossu could have the opportunity here to get one more point. Folks in chat have spoken saying Silver is not him, and that could be the case. Silver may not be him in this particular matchup, just when Best Spoon is ready to answer back like that.
Absolutely. Plus, Bastoon this time around does have that light Gojo. So we could go into a scenario where there is a light Gojo, plus a Laura, plus something else. Once again, we have a Sackbet being pre-banned.
Yeah, back in the table. I think some folks were expecting a trauma ban on the Juno, but I think a trauma ban on Juno is not the play. I think it also forecasts an inability to change, and also a stubbornness in the comp. I think Jossu can be a little bit more flexible here, change up what he brings to the table, and he'll have a better opportunity to grab that second point.
I definitely do like the pre-ban of Bespon on that Twin Angels, because Jossu could go for first pick Silver, but it's one of those units that completely didn't work in that previous matchup. So banning the Twin Angels, which is the other first pick that Jossu does like to do, might be a right play over there. But this is actually a very interesting comp right now. We have, I think her name is Ophelia? Or something like that?
Wind Spectre Princess. Admittedly, the Wind Spectre Princess is not one of the sisters in that family that I've paid the most attention to. The water one and the dark one, the ones that deal with the big damage with the sacrifice in the back, like that, those are the ones that I personally want, say.
Yeah, same for me, but it's interesting to see because she does have that passive where she takes damage from other allies, so she gets the damage on her, and the other allies don't really get that. But I'm not really sure what Jossu is trying to do with this draft right now, because he's playing against two AoE strippers without any proper passives that can prevent AoE strippers from doing their thing.
Interesting. So Best Spoon swapping the script here and taking the Jongnam away from where Jossu used it before, and Silver is back at it again, much to the sadness of chat, who have stated that he is in fact not him.
Yeah, interesting to see. I think the bans go on one of the two immunities, because that could be the dangerous factor. No, actually takes out the Silver for the speed lead. So this could be a moment that if one of the two violent units that is on immunity might still win that match, but it might be difficult.
Yeah, so the Wind Spectre Princess here, the Orfina, I looked it up here on the side. This might be a way to just increase the longevity of that Zeratul.
Yeah, definitely could be a thing, but in this case we do have two strips. Actually, none of the strips connecting on that Zeratul. That is something that Zeratul does like to see a lot, because it's one of those units that just, well, if you don't get the bar from the enemy, you might as well additional turn.
Yeah, and we can see that Wind Spectre Princess already putting in work, but unfortunately it's not enough. The Mi Ying getting that additional turn can lock down the Zeratul and get an early takedown, say.
So even with the protection of that Orfina, it was just simply not enough with the additional turns, and that is just one of those units. If a Miying takes an additional turn, it gets the armor break. It is just simply so much damage.
Oh my god, dude, that was just insane. It was a good strategy. I liked what Jossu had cooking up. I think maybe the Orfina could be a little bit too stagnant, might be too passive of a pick, But I liked what he was cooking up. I liked the investment in the Zeratul, but unfortunately, Best Spoon brought the power and took that second possible point.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, on the side of Jossu, let's say that there were no additional turns on the side of Bespoon. Bespoon was also being slightly unlucky with landing 0 strips on that Zeratul altogether. So it could have been stunned in the first place. So in the end, it goes a little bit back and forth, but the double additional turn always feels like one of those units. It's very impactful. You really notice, like, oh yeah, I just died to additional turn. Well, then again, would you have lived without being having immunity in the first place? So that's kind of the back and forth that you can make on that match. The Orfina is an interesting unit, but then again, I feel like it's kind of on similar level as a Darien. I'm not really sure what it's supposed to do.
Yes, actually, that's so funny you say that. I was just about to highlight, we had a comment in chat a second ago saying that, like, Darien would have saved him. If it was a Darien, that Zeratul would have still been alive, which is a crazy statement, but it's 100% true. So yeah, I liked what Jossu cooked up for us, but I think maybe it was just a little bit too passive. We maybe needed a little bit more activity to counter what Best Spoon was bringing to the table there, say.
Absolutely, or actually bring in the passive as in the passive in game, because that could be a thing where you take a turn at a certain moment, you take a turn from a Vert, you take a turn from a Juno or something like that. Those kind of passes mostly help you to play into those AoE CC kind of comps, rather than saying like, I think I need my violent procs to proc out of a stun and then maybe provide immunity, because sure, that can work from time to time, but it is a difficult strategy.
It is 100%. Man, we were just talking about tough procs with the Water Monkey King, and then we got one of the advantageous ones. But I love what you said, man, because previously in that game, Best Spoon was actually looking pretty unlucky going into it, and so got a little bit of luck coming his way towards the end of it, and I think it was frankly a little bit deserved here. Man, say we have had some incredible games already.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to be having a lot more games as well, because we're going to be having 9 more games today, rather than normally from this point on having 6 more games. We have 9 more games, so therefore all of the players are playing, and therefore also all of the players have been playing against every enemy. But first, we go into a little bit of a break. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and we'll see you right back.
Hello and welcome back to the 2025 European League. This time for, again, day 7, the last day ahead of the playoffs for these players to earn points. I'm still Evan, and I'm still here with Say Shizo. What's going on, Say?
Yeah, definitely excited for the next few matches because in the end, this is what it matters to get towards those playoffs that are going to be playing on the 12th and 13th of April. So if you haven't marked it on your calendar yet, why not? You should be doing that. But then we're playing actually at a different time. And to be honest, on the top of my head, I don't know the time, but follow the socials because there it's always mentioned as well.
They will make sure that you are well aware of the time on the socials, and these players have a lot on the line. Today, specifically, they've got seeds in the bracket. If you play better during these qualification matches, then you will place higher in the bracket, and the top 2 will get a very nice bye.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone has been looking for that. And actually, the 2 players that are coming up, I just looked on my left looking at the bracket already, which are going to be shown on the screen in a second as well. We have Slaix playing against Pinkroid, and Slaix picking up those 2 points is actually currently at the same position as Pinkroid. Sure, Pinkroid still has to be playing 2 matches, but both of them are sitting on 13 points, if I'm not mistaken.
But that is huge, and it goes to show you exactly what we talked about earlier, where this day in particular has a lot of opportunity for shakeup. The lineup of player that you see in the leaderboard might not necessarily stay in the same rankings that they started with.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see what Slaix prepared against Pinkroid, because Pinkroid could have been just relaxing, seeing what Slaix played in the previous matchup. He does know that 0-2, but then again, preparing against Pinkroid is very difficult because the man drafts about everything he can find in his favorite box, and also outside of that, he's one of those players that might still find a Miho or a Kinky, and he just makes it work.
Yeah, I think it's not exactly hyperbole to say the Pinkroid is one of the biggest obstacles for these players going in. He is one of the most consistent players. He's got SWCs under his belt. The man is a legend. And now Slaix has to do his best to deny some points and secure that lead. This is big, Say. What does he have to do going into this?
Yeah, definitely interesting to see that Ciara being pre-banned. Sure, it's a very pivotal unit, but then again, Slaix does have that 0-2 and that Gianna, so those could be options that you could be banning out. Pinkroid also joining in on that Twin Angels meta right now.
The Water Twin Angels, it's like one of the most popular picks right now. You were telling me about that before. The strength of the Water Twins, especially combined with the Fire ones, is trending pretty high in popularity. And there she blows. Speak of the Fire Twins and they shall appear.
Absolutely, but also I think this is a really good position for that Gyu to show up, because Gyu in general is really good into the Oliver, but that Shiho is also not that great into a Gyu, so absolutely liking that Gyu pick over here. Let's see what Slaix goes for the final few units, because in the case he goes for a 0-2 plus something else right now, I do think that Pinkroid would be looking at something along the lines of a Diana maybe.
Yeah, that could be the case. There's Gianna. You shouted out the Gianna as a good option for Slaix, and he's bringing the Mi Ying, which did a really good job for Slaix earlier today.
Absolutely, but also Pinkroid being very fast with those 2 units, actually showing them, but still giving it a little bit of time of doing, what do I actually want to lock this in? Because in the end, yes, it does really work well, but fighting a Mi Ying and a Gianna is always dangerous. So I do think that he's looking around in his box. Is there maybe a better option than this? In the end, says no, and locks in the Hey Gang and the Atna.
I ultimately liked what he picked there. I think the Hey Gang is obviously just the perfect counter pick to Gianna. And then you highlighted the Gyo as being a really good answer to the Shiho as well as the Oliver. It's just going to inadvertently feed her a ton of attack bar. And she also has the strip you need to get rid of the immunity on the monkey and the invincibility, plus some defense breaks too.
That's definitely an interesting one to go back towards that Tetsuya. Fire Megami, that name is a little bit easier for me, because in this case you do have a double speed lead on the side of Slaix, but you might only have a single speed lead on the side of Pinkroid, so you could be banning that out. However, goes for the ban on that Hey Gang, so the big question is going to be, Athna, can you do enough work?
I think we saw that ban on the Hey Gang coming from a mile away. It's funny that the Gianna got through. That shows me that Pinkroid has a lot of confidence in that Athna right now. Let's see what she can do here. We're going into the first set. Pinkroid versus Slaix. Shiho taking turn 1.
And you actually get a stun wrong element. Does not manage to get that stun. Did do a good amount of damage, but none of these stuns were activated. So in the end, it's still a low chance percentage. But then again, also Gyu did not activate Gianna skill 3. Are you gonna bring her below 50% HP? And that is just below 50% HP.
You can always count on Etna. That was a lot to ask from the Monkey King, trying to get a stun off element like that. That was kind of crazy. But the Etna, she always delivers. That's incredible. Here comes Mi Ying. Let's see. He could set up a skill 2 if he wants to feed the Gyo some attack bar. I think damage is the way to go, and it seems like Slaix is on the same page.
Absolutely, but now the big question, do you actually take it out? Because the skill 3 is very likely to take out that Athena. And I think that should be the right skill to go for. Does he go for that or does he psych it somewhere else? He does actually go for it and takes out that Athena.
That was a good play. Slaix was thinking about it too. He's like, do I really want to waste a skill 3 into this? Waste is a strong word though. I think if you take a kill, I think you've succeeded. And now we're trading right here. Pinkroid is taking one, and now again we are at parity. We have 3v3, both teams at nearly full HP. It's anybody's game right now, but I like Pinkroid's position with the Gyo that's just going to be getting the attack bar from the Oliver.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the other side, my eyes are on that Mi Ying. Mi Ying has been showing that it can do so much damage. It's hard to stun as well. Sure, there's still that increase multi-shot. Actually doesn't let a single increase. There was one activation from a 60% times 3, but 0 of them actually landed.
Oh my god, and did you see that damage coming out from the Fire Twin Angels? Oliver is knocked out just before our eyes too.
Absolutely, and that is a Gyu on crit rate. A Gyu on crit rate does do a lot of damage, but armor break on this plus the multi-hits, that is so much damage as well. And the unit that had my eyes looked at it was actually taken out very swiftly right there.
Oh my goodness, man. Mi Ying is a super strong monster, and that's why you want to dedicate enough attention to it. You highlighted the strongest unit on the side of Slaix. Is so right. Now, it's all up to the Monkey King, who admittedly has not had the greatest performance in this particular game, but I have seen this monster do crazier work than solo 3 monsters.
Absolutely, but I do think you need Violent for that, and you need to have the position in there where the enemy doesn't have any strips. And, well, both of those scenarios ain't happening right here. It is on Swift, and there's a lot of strips on your enemy side.
And now the cooldown time is increased. You're not going to proc into additional cooldowns. This is looking like a pretty easy GG from Pinkroid, but Slaix had a good comp here. He tried real hard, but man, Pinkroid is a tough enemy to beat.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's also very well played on the current meta. It's the double Twin Angels, plus that Gyo, it's insanely strong against that Oliver, and then everything that comes after just has to deal with the other units. And he did that very well, plus that early pick on that Water Monkey was also very well covered by that Gyo.
It was, man. I think out of everything, the Gyo's actually functional damage, as well as the Fire Twin Angel damage. Both of those were big surprises to me. I knew that you could put some serious damage with additionals on artifacts for the Fire Twins, but looking at how much they took away from that Mi Ying in a single hit, they hit him for like 50% of his HP, say.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just one of those units with a lot of multi-hits and a lot of damage right there. But also the Gyo is one of those units, it does do a lot of damage the moment that Karma, the suppression, is on the enemy side, because that is the moment you start dealing damage by enemy max HP. Therefore, all your crit rate and crit damage starts rocking in a lot of damage on that unit. And we just saw, like on that Oliver, it was a 12k into a 10k. That's a lot of damage on Oliver right there.
It was, and here comes the pre-ban. So Slaix locks in Raj, Ramael, and Judaya, the Water Twin Angels, and then Pinkroid putting Tetsuya, the Fire Megami, in the pre-bans. Doesn't want to have to deal with all that incidental attack bar gain from hitting random opponents.
Yeah, and then he goes for the Oliver and that segment. So that actually does give maybe a little bit of an option for Slaix to also be looking at a Gyu, but I'm not sure if that is a comfortable unit that he does like playing himself, or that he rather refers back to his LDs, the Zeratul, the Gianna. Well, actually still goes for that Monkey. Well, that's also one of those things. If your Monkey is holding one of your strongest sets, at some point you're not necessarily picking the unit, but you're picking your strongest set.
Well said, man. That's a really good way to look at it, because you don't want to just leave those behind. It's like, if those are your strongest runes, you got to present them. And it's rare that the Monkey is actively bad, but picking him before the 4th and 5th pick in a team, I find gives the opponent a lot of time to counter it. And we're seeing exactly that happen with Pinkroid, just drafting fully into it with the Etna.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really liking that position of the Athena over here. And once again, if he goes for a Mi Ying plus a Gianna right now, I don't think that he's sitting on too strong of a draft. Maybe he's trying to get that position once again. That's sure you can take out 1 or 2 units, but can you take out all of them? But the big difference over here is you have to reset from that segment. You have to reset from that Oliver. You have a potential stun, which is well counted by Sonya. Well, wait, first the Josephine. And then we also have a Sonya, which is just once again really strong for the side of Pinkroid. So I do like Pinkroid's position in this draft at the moment.
It didn't seem like Pinkroid is too confident in the Sonya. I actually like the Sonya into this. I don't know if we've seen any indication from. Oh wow, yeah. Well, I mean, bringing that Juliana his is actually it's never bad, but I didn't mind the Sonya.
Yeah, I think the Sonya in this position would have maybe even done better, especially if you're already planning on banning that Sierra. You would have that speed lead, you would guaranteed take out that Zeratul and 1-hit. Maybe he was a little bit scared of the additional damage potential on the units of the side of Slaix though.
Let's see how this goes. Can Slaix deny Pinkroid that second point and hold position, or will Pinkroid take this 2-0?
Yeah, let's see. Segment, where do you want to land your third skill? Actually goes for the monkey, so therefore also the cooldown on the segment itself is going to be a little bit longer because she lowers her cooldown the moment that she does land her skill and steals something in the process. But about stealing something, we have that Jongnam taking the additional turn.
And seeing the Violent proc coming out from Jongnam, it makes it almost like he's unnerfed. You know, it's like, who needs to cycle when you can just get an extra turn? And here comes Oliver, increasing cooldown time on Zeratul, so that way denying him that immunity and attack buff coming in. Julian's going to get some big damage here and actually gets it on the Josephine.
Yeah, getting it on the Josephine right now. So now the big question is, where do you want to land your damage? Who are you going to be taking out first? Is that going to be that Oliver? Is that going to be that Jongnam? Or do you maybe get somewhere an armor break due to counters and work from there? But so far the Oliver is doing a lot of work, just denying all of the attack bars on the enemy side.
Yeah, even in like a 50% effectiveness scenario like we just saw, right? You know, he still gets that attack bar, gets a clutch little proc there. He's whittling down the Zeratul, and this Julian should be able to confirm the kill. That's exactly what we saw.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the end, where the Sonya might have been like the first target and the first easy target for Slaix to be focusing on if there was a Sonya on the side of Pinkroid, the Julian is well protected by the other 3 units being very tanky, very lively, and just very hard to deal with in the first place.
And you look at the bravery that Pinkroid is throwing his Sekhmet and his Oliver into, right? You know, they're actively attacking into the Mi Ying, despite the fact he's got counterattack on, exactly for that payoff, because he is confident that he can take him out before he lets Slaix effectively use that defense break.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also one of those matchups. Into an Oliver, you still want to have at least some fire units or at least something to contest, where he cannot just simply go for his skills time and time again. In this case, Oliver is simply doing Oliver things.
And this is it. Even if that Shiho was at full HP, I don't think that he'd be able to get rid of the Julian here. I think this is just so advantageous for Pinkroid, locking it down, getting that second point. Say, what a strong game.
Yeah, absolutely. And both of them, I feel like, were pretty much won on the draft. Like, the drafting phase was just so well planned out by Pinkroid, denying all of the options for Slaix to make either a comeback or to just get extra variances in where it might actually work, but simply was all taken away by, in that second match, the Oliver, but in that first match as well.
Oh yeah, and we said it before, Pinkroid is a big obstacle, right? You know, he is a mountain that you need to overcome in a bracket like this sort of thing. So Pinkroid securing the lead again, taking 2 points away from Slaix there. You mentioned that was one in the pick ban phase. Going into that last game, I think we kind of saw that. It seemed like Slaix's draft was maybe it lacked a little bit of cohesion. You know, what would you have done differently in his position there, say?
Well, the thing is, we did mention that, okay, pick your best set, which was probably on that monkey, but actually Pinkroid looked very well at seeing the monkey in previous matchup, in his previous match, simply, and by seeing it's like, okay, my Atma can deal with that, my Gyu can deal with that. That is not a big issue. Have that runes on that unit and I can totally deal with that. And that is maybe then also the issue is like, okay, it is a really good set, but the unit is simply not really working out that well for him in this position.
Yeah, and you can kind of draft against it and counter it just by going into what you were already planning to do. We saw him pivot into an Etna with your Oliver and your Sekhmet. That's actually, it's not putting you out too much, but that's all in the past. Looking ahead, we've got more great games ahead of us. We got the return of Scribble versus Jossu coming up again. So we saw Scribble got our first draw of the day, a point up against Best Spoon. So Jossu has yet to get any points today, say. So what are you anticipating from both of these players going into the pick ban phase?
Well, it's definitely going to be an interesting one as well. Is Scribble going to go back towards that style of the Sierra, Yeonhong, Sibala robot that he very much liked to play? But that was also something that was more working in a previous season rather than even the last season. Like in season 32, it wasn't working as well anymore as well. So it is just a big question. Do you want to go back to that draft, or do you still want to go for some kind of bruiser style? However, I do know that both of the two players over here really do like their water twin angels. So I do expect that to be a high contested unit.
They'll probably fight over that a little bit. I know chat is going to have a fun one with this because we have fans of both of these players in chat right now. So while you're watching, I'd love to see who you got going into this game. Who do you think is going to take it? Scribble or Jossu? Pre-bans are locked in. We got Sekhmet and Yanhong appearing down there. Neither of them will be able to be drafted this game.
And it's actually interesting to see where Sekhmet wasn't changed in the balance patch at all, but it's just become a change of the meta, and therefore she becomes the dominant unit to be pre-banned, which is definitely interesting to see that even if there's no direct balancing towards a certain unit, the meta shifting might still drag a unit up or down in that sense. However, we do have that Water Twin Angels being picked up by Scribble.
And here comes Jossu again with the silver picks. It's strong monster. We saw it get countered earlier. Oh, we were just talking about this too, man. Fire Twin Angels solo against the Water Twins is not always in the most advantageous position.
No, absolutely not. I've been checking the numbers on that because it's one of those units, once again, if you have a good set on it, maybe you want to use it. But actually the win rate of the Fire Twin Angels into the Water Twin Angels is incredibly low. And there's actually two reasons for that. The pair is really strong, but also the Water Twin or the Fire Twin Angels does not like to play into the Water Twin Angels. So curious to see what Scribble has cooking up for that draft, because he still wants to take a turn 1 position right there. However, your enemy is already having a 33 lead. So you have to be a little bit careful with that, because Jossu could be going into some fast units right now, maybe in Athena, maybe in Asher that he has been using before, and then take that first turn and work from there. However, he still needs some strips, and single target strip, that is Gyu.
Yeah, well said. It's very much the ball was in Jossu's court, but it seems like Jossu is kind of yielding that turn 1 to Scribbles and instead opting for disruption in the form of the Gyo. And one of my favorite units for the last couple seasons, Xingxie, the Wind Monkey King. He is so fun ever since his appearance in the second to last balance patch, where now he strips whenever he counterattacks. Very cool, very disruptive. People do not see that sort of thing coming. It's hard to predict.
Absolutely, but this is the draft where I think Scribble could almost go Clara. That's not something okay, that is new. I was thinking something more along the lines of a Juno, maybe even a Douglas. Douglas might be a little bit risky into the Fire Twins, but I definitely do think you have a pretty decent draft with that. But Clara is something that is very inconsistent, and maybe Scribble has been playing a little bit too much Siege on 4-star, because I'm not really sure what that unit is doing over there, but I do really hope for him that it lands everything, because mostly she doesn't.
Well said, man. You know what? Folks in chat, they're saying Scribble is cooking right now. They're calling him the master chef. Let's see if this meal is good. Scribble has cooked up something good for us, potentially. Clara is crazy going in here. Well, let's see how this goes. Water Twin Angels starting us off in this game. Clara goes. Will she land the stuns? Kinda.
Yeah, there was one. I spotted one. I think that's not really... That's the kind of Master Chef things where it just simply doesn't really work out that well. Then again, the Karma also is not landed yet. Do we get that Karma? We do get the Karma, so you still have to be going for that bomb. But the big issue is there is going to be immunity either from the Silver or that Fire Twin Angels coming after that.
Yeah, that was a cool situation that Jossu put Scribble into there. It's like you still have to rip the bomb regardless of the Karma. So that's going to deny Ciara some turns, adding 3 extra on top, and also 50% of her HP.
It was also interesting to see that Silver died to a simple 21k. Most of the time, Silver is based on a lot of HP. But in this case, it simply was not. But now it's Monkey against the world, and in the end, there is no healing on the side of Jossu, but there is a little bit of healing on the side of Scribble. So let's see if Jossu can take this back, or Scribble is still sitting in the driver's seat.
We have commentary in chat from Scribble. He says, stun the monkey, all I need for real.
Scribble, focus on your matches. I know you're listening. Focus.
Yeah, focus. What are you doing? Type it in here, because Jossu still has an opportunity to steal this game away. I know the HP is generally low, but when you've got a Gyo who's just gaining turns, you've got Monkey who's gaining value on top, and he's ruined on revenge, so he's counterattacking, critting, and stunning your Clara.
But I think elements don't matter in this game anymore because we had a monkey stunning fire. We had the Twin Angels stunning the monkey in its own regards. At some points, elements don't really matter, but Scribble is definitely sitting in the driver's seat over here with units on the enemy side being very low on HP.
Scribble proving himself right here, saying he only needs the stun on the monkey, and he followed it up. Our multitasking champion right here, taking 1 point away from Jossu. So, you know, I don't hate what Jossu brought to the table there, Say. I actually like the Gyo. I like the Monkey King. Do you think he needs to do anything differently, or do you think just maybe like the accuracy res tides need to sway more in his favor? What are you expecting going into this?
Well, I definitely did like the idea that he was going for, but I think he could have went a little bit more speed contesting because the first 3 units on the side of Scribble weren't showing too much speed contest, and that's definitely a position where you can go for that Athna, and we've seen it on the side of Pinkroid. It works very well if the enemy doesn't show any fire units, and Scribble at that position didn't do any of those yet.
Good point. Would have been so funny if Jossu pre-banned the Clara. Oh my God, Say. That would have been so good. But ultimately, he's taken this seriously, as he should. I mean, with placements on the line, as well as your shot at a slice of a 10,000 euro prize pool, like, you know, he should be taking this very seriously. Scribble, too, really thinking here if the Oliver is what he wants to go with, and he opts instead for the Chandra.
Interesting style to go for the Chandra right there, but he's probably looking at a unit that is therefore also well protected by a Chandra. What comes to mind for me is a Federica, but then again, if the enemy already has a segment, you're definitely not going to go for that at a later moment. But at least he's keeping a lot of options open. So let's see what Jossu goes for. It actually goes for a very early Water Gojo, and Water Gojo normally is really good if your enemy is already showing a lot of pushback potential and therefore does not land any of those pushbacks. But as of currently, there's 0 pushback potential, so curious to see what the Gojo is going to do over there.
It was early, but you know, Scribble is acting like maybe he wants to pick into it a little bit with the cigar. Maybe he's just unafraid. He thinks maybe he can like gain more value than the Water Gojo's threatening. Oh my goodness, and an Acroma at the end.
Yeah, definitely a good position for the Acroma. However, Jossu still has 2 positions where he could go for something countering. If Jossu goes for a double pure vanilla cookie right now, or something along the line, so that we're talking about the fire pure vanilla cookie and a wind pure vanilla cookie, I think he's looking at a very strong draft. But Same A is doing about a similar thing. If you now find another pure vanilla cookie or a Raccoon or anything next to that, I think that Jossu is definitely looking at a good draft.
And he opts for the Velajewel. A little bit of heal, some cleanse, and some of the strongest immunity offered in RTA right now. Let's see how Scribble answers back to this. He's taking his time to think about it. I don't know what his biggest threat is. If I'm Scribble right now, if I'm thinking about locking in the miles, I think I might just ban Ciara, but what are you leaning towards?
Yeah, Ciara ban, and then in its own respect, the Miles ban, because Jossu was drafting a very good 4 and 5, and if you have a very good 4 and 5, most of the time it's based on you already know that you're gonna be banning your enemy 5th.
That's a good point. Here we go. Last game in this best of 2, Jossu versus Scribble. Scribble already with a point on the board, but he wants that second one, man. When it is the most important, Say, he wants it.
Yeah, let's see how much damage he can do and where he's going to be placing it, because in the end, you are placing a unit with cooldowns into a cigar. It can definitely be stripped, and also the segment is showing a little bit slow on this side. Well, there was a tech push. Ooh, did not manage to land on that Valajewel, and that was the important part of that cigar. You have to be denying the Valajewel, the Sanctuary.
That was real tough. You hate to see it. I mean, there's always that chance. But now Jossu has a big opportunity. It's like this is his window right now. All of the skills for Scribble are pretty much down, with the exception of like skill 2 from Cigar. No defense breaks though from the segment.
Yeah, that was a segment that definitely did not look like a Nefties. That's always the common joke. Is your segment leaning a lot towards the Nefties or not? In this case, absolutely not. But that could have also been due to that Acroma. However, there's still a lot of immunity to be working with, for Scribble, and I don't think he's going to be getting close anytime soon, because normally Cigar with additional turns you could kind of be feeling like, okay, I can get back into my skill 3. But ever since that skill 3 had one longer cooldown, it is very difficult to get your skill 3 back.
Yeah, and so Yanhong's going to take a turn, but I don't think she's got any gas left in the tank, and that's true for most of Scribble's team here. Scribble real quiet in the chat right now. Jossu pulling ahead. And let's see if he can lock down this game.
Yeah, we're 2 turns away for that Cigar. So Cigar, even if it took the additional turn right there, was still not enough. Volatiles in these positions on a defense break can do a lot of damage, but also a Gojo where it looked a little bit weird in the draft where he was picked in. It actually became a comfortable pick, being later on just with how Scribble drafted in his slot 4 and slot 3, because none of these were actually hard countering that, and the Volatiles just did so much work by getting that Sanctuary up.
He did. That was a big miss early for poor Scribble, and now he's got to lock in right now. And see if maybe I don't know if his Chroma can do the heavy lifting here. It's looking pretty unlikely, say.
Yeah, it's definitely looking very unlikely. That's also the point where Seimei in the end in this draft didn't do all too much, because Seimei normally wants to be healing from debuffs being there, but in the end, if you have Sanctuary up the whole time, it's just not gonna work. Well, we also take 1-for-1 with the segment also not connecting her skills, but then again, that was very late into the match, so that one did count a little bit less.
It was, man. Jossu coming in clutch here with a cool draft that really showed itself in the game here. This was great. 1-1 for Scribble and Jossu in a draw, our second draw of the day. And honestly, that's great, say, because it's like these guys, they're friends. A lot of the folks here play against each other all the time, and it's like there's a camaraderie here. So I'm sure they're happy to give each other the point.
Yeah, absolutely. But that does also mean for Scribble that he already played all of his matches so far. And the same thing for Jossu, actually. So they have to be waiting and pretty much refreshing the leaderboard every time to see what are the other people playing. Like, who do I need to lose? Who do I need to win to get my points to be in that top 8?
Oh yeah, because that's what we're playing for today, guys. Today you want to make it in the top 8. If you can't get top 2, you want at least top 8, because that's what's going to get you placed in the playoffs, which said April 12th. It's coming up. It's coming up soon, guys. So that is where all the money can be won. Today we're just earning a spot in the bracket.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see for those players like what they get into, and I think after the next match we might see an updated version of those leaderboards. Don't add me on it, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it will be there. So I'm very curious to see how the leaderboard would look at that moment. But then again, we still have 7 more matches to be played, so there's still a lot of points to be being picked up, and that is going to be the question for Pinkroid. Can he extend his lead and getting a comfortable first position by getting 2 points over here? Or is Unarmed taking those points to get a comfortable or more comfortable position? Or maybe still on the edge of making it towards the playoffs?
Yeah, he wants to increase that lead, hopefully getting Pinkroid, I'm sure, hoping for that 2-0. And it would low-key be good for other people. Pinkroid increasing his lead as the number 1 already means that other folks aren't falling further behind in that sense. Because again, top 8 is all they care about. And now we're going into Unarmed versus Pinkroid here. So what are your expectations for this game, say?
Well, I think Pinkroid is still going to be playing around his comfortable playstyle of the Twin Ages, but Pinkroid might be also one of those players that will be hard contesting for that Vanessa that I did talk about earlier. So let's see what he goes for, because in this case, he could go for a first pick Vanessa, and then in second round, actually ban it.
And we got the pre-bans, 2 arguably MVPs of the day and of the season, the Water Twin Angels and the Oliver.
Yeah, absolutely. So, big question right now. Pinkroid, most of the time, a first pick is a speed lead, and there we have it right away, picking out that Vanessa, which makes the comfortable comp for Unarmed, which is cleave-based damage-dealing single target, not really that great, because Vanessa is really good pairing with that, but Vanessa is also really good against that. So your enemy already takes a double up on something beneficial right there. And Unarmed definitely has been taking, like most of the time where you see an early pick, people do kind of know what they want to lock in. But if they're really taking the time on their first 2 picks already, you know you have them on the back foot.
Oh man, Unarmed is treating us today. Anytime I see a Draco drafted in a tournament setting, I get really excited. Following that up with a Narsha too, he's going aggressive. He wants to get an early knockout fast. And it's great to lead with this because, say, this is kind of one of those comps that, you could counter after you've seen it,
Yeah, it's definitely curious to see what Unarmed is going to be bringing for speed lead, because in the end, the speed leads are definitely needed there at some point. I'm also not too sure about that Wusa pick right there, because Wusa in the end is not really a super hard counter into a cleave style, especially something with a Narsha, and there's more options for other units to come in here as well. Actually, Unarmed is going to
Most
go a
man.
little bit of both. We're going Bruiser right now with a Raccoon.
Yeah, I guess unarmed is saying where we're going. We don't need speed leads. We're fast. We don't need those. We can give turns with the Rakuni, and we're taking a little bit of this, a little bit of that with the Xingxie, so that way, just in case something goes awry and the game extends into the mid game, can at least get some value with some strip and stun potential. I think that might be signaling he's expecting his Narsha to get banned, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also, once again, like this well-rounded draft of Pinkroid. We have a lot of damage coming in from that Julian, but also the protection and taking a unit away by that Irene. We have seen it a few times before in the leagues. It's a very strong unit in the current meta.
It's crazy right now, stripping two buffs, putting someone in the bag for 10 turns. Like, it's a great monster. Also, one of only two occurrences of that reflect harmful effects buff. Only her and the dark sister of her actually can even apply that. Unarmed is thinking about locking in a Bella for that fifth pick.
I'm not too sure about the Bella because I simply don't think it has a lot of damage or even enough damage to be working around with that. So I'm curious to see what this draft is going to do and how it's going to work out. Because in the end, if that Raccoon is gone, are you actually going to be doing enough?
It's a really good question because there's not a lot of maneuverability. There's not a lot of attack bar game, but there's also not a ton of attack bar pushback, which means the Julian is going to be a real tough sell against Unarmed right now. Almost to the point where I would, there you go. You kind of have to ban it because since he cleanses at the start of his turn, he really only falters to slow debuffs and attack bar pushback.
Yep, absolutely. So in this case, it's going to be the big question once again on that Atna. How much can you do and where can you do it? Because that Draco, if it takes turn, still going to be a speed buff plus a potential attack buff.
Oh, trading stuns on turn one here. Etna did what she needed to. Oh, and unfortunately, Narsha did what she had to. Gets a proc. Is this going to be enough to actually wear out Vanessa's skill 3? Do you even want to, or do you just want to get a little bit of damage in on Vanessa? That's exactly what he's doing.
That's a lot of damage, but also that additional turn. Draco does have a 1-turn attack buff and a 1-turn speed buff. If you additional turn, those are still gone, but in the end, there's so much damage on this Narsha, and the additional turns are really helping out to take out 2 units really quickly.
I gotta say, Unarmed really surprised me here. I thought with no speed lead, with no attack bar push, I thought that maybe he had abandoned the idea of a full snipe, but it turns out he's just doing it, but a little bit slower.
Yeah, absolutely. And it did work out with also the Draco being a really kind Draco over there, giving attack buff to the whole team, because that is not a guaranteed, but Pinkroid's units are just simply not connecting as we're used to see from him.
Yeah, good. It's a good point. You can't always bank on that attack buff. It's a little bit of RNG on that third skill. Here comes Irene. She's going to try to do what she can. Putting threat state on Wusa is actually a pretty cool idea here. Now, I have not actually seen this situation before. With the reflect harmful effects, if you've got immunity on, will it actually reflect anything, or will it just not reflect anything because there was nothing that could be applied on immunity?
Well, I wasn't 100% sure, but you can see it if he does any skills right now which would reflect something. You do see that there is a notification of resistance on its own unit as well. So yes, I do actually think that it is still reflecting, even though that there's immunity. But since there's immunity in yourself as well, nothing is being reflected because you have your own immunity.
That's good. I wish that we got to see that in action in a situation where there wasn't immunity on this side, but I would hope that it operates like that, and it looks like it does, just because it makes the buff a little bit stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. So Wusa, we're looking at double turn, does not get the double turn that it's so much needed, and Pinkroid does. No, it was all on that double turn from that Wusa, trying to get that Wish of Immortality back at that moment, getting the shields in, getting the immunity in. If you can't get that at that moment, it is a done game. So in the end, where the Draco did really show like, hey, we're going to be playing this style, it did actually work out. But then again, I would say that the Wusa was maybe not the best of plays against it as well, because the Wusa, in the end, sure, if it gets the turns in, it works, but you're already playing a Nasha. She just simply strips.
Yeah, exactly. While Unarmed doing what a lot of people can't do, taking a game off Pinkroid. That is pretty incredible here. Those are the pre-bans from last time. Of course, both of those are on the table now. I would almost want to pre-ban a Narsha after that showing, but I don't know. What are your thoughts here, Say?
Yeah, Nasha would definitely be an option. Other option would be now pre-banning that Vanessa, because in most cases, Vanessa is the pivotal unit that Unarmed needs to make his cleave work. But then again, Unarmed in that previous match just showed us like, all I need is a Nasha and a Draco. So Pinkroid does respect that.
Exactly. And so now Unarmed answering back, it's like, okay, you ban my LD5, I'm gonna ban yours. I'm gonna ban out the Julian, which I actually think is the right play here, because last time he did a great ban on that unit. I really think it would have thrown a wrench in that situation. The disruption he offers is top tier. There's a reason he's been considered one of the best LDs for a while now, even post nerf on the stun on skill 2.
Absolutely. So now the big question is Pinkroid going to be comfortably bruisering right now? It could be an option, but the moment you go bruiser right now, an Unarmed is definitely going to be locking in very fast units, maybe an Adriana, maybe a Sonya, but there's a lot of options right there. So picking in a segment that also does contest that speed is very good.
And Unarmed answering back saying, I am undeterred. I want that turn 1 just as much as you. Bringing in Etna, considering what he wants for that third slot. Bella, I gotta say, actually did earn a slot on the team again. She performed real well for him last game.
Yep, absolutely. So let's see if Pinkroid goes along the lines of also speed contesting this. In the end, if he goes more in towards a fire draft right now, we already have that Atna being placed into one fire unit. If you add it in with a Bayek, it's definitely a very difficult situation where the Shatter isn't going to connect as much, and therefore you don't get as much cycling on that Atna.
What a great unit, that Asher. And the Wind Zenny, the Wind Zenitsu, one of the strongest units from the most recent collab. I really like all the Zennies, you know, denying crowd control effects, but also offering like a very strong skill 1, speed scaling damage, and also death denial on a passive.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see what Unarmed goes for. He doubles it down with just more damage and more damage. He has to maybe be a little bit careful with that, because in the end, there's a good amount of healing on the side of Pinkroid already, but he's just doubling down of going full on damage right there.
So I like the Nefties as like another instance of Death Break enabling, and I kind of think that's what maybe Unarmed is going for here, because as great as she is, right, you know, Bayek also has the opportunity for cleanse, though maybe if you get that silence to stick around, then maybe that would kind of throw something in. That actually could make her ban-worthy, that silence, I would say. And now Pinkroid's considering locking in the Leo. What are your thoughts? Who would you ban, say?
I'm not too sure about the Leo, because the Zenitsu in the end is really hard hit by a Leo as well, because there's a lot of speed scaling going into that unit. Sure, the Oliver is too, but I think that Pinkroid is just hoping that either the Zenitsu or the Leo would take the ban, and therefore the, or not the Oliver, the Miles is not going to be doing as much. I would say that maybe you have to respect that Nefties. No, actually, we get a ban on that Bella and still that Leo.
Yeah, that's the ban on the Leo. I guess you kind of have to, because you want to unlock your Miles, but it also unlocks the Zenitsu. You know, that was kind of a self-imposed. You know, it's like we're forming a binding vow right now. We're both going to do less damage, but Unarmed want nothing to do with it. Gets an early stun on Sekhmet and denies the early access to skill 3.
Yeah, also interesting to see is that Atna is on Violent or Despair, because it's actually moving in front of other units. So interesting to see when it's going to be moving at that position, because it hasn't been taking any turn yet. Do you now go for an armor break on the Bayek? Ooh, if you went for an armor break on the Bayek, I think with the skill 3, you could have denied the turn on that Bayek right there.
That's what I was thinking too. I mean, Bayeks are normally pretty tanky, so considering some glance opportunities, it might have been a little bit difficult. But I think you kind of got to go for it, because watch this. Skill 3 from Bayek just completely stops everything that Unarmed had been working towards with that Water Twin Angels.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he had a really good and interesting position right there. We did get an additional turn at the right moment from the Atna, but in the end, it just couldn't really do enough. And where Bayek mostly has a lot of HP, it doesn't have that much defense. So I definitely do think you could have brought it down to 50% HP. But then again, we have the Twin Angels doing a lot of work right now, because Unarmed simply doesn't have any protection for his units.
Oh my god, and say, I 100% agree with you. I would go so far as to say maybe it was like a missed opportunity, maybe quick thinking or something like that. Sometimes those things get missed. Zenny, he's going to clean up. He's going to clean up some kills right now. Oh, he's going to leave it behind for the Sekhmet. But I do agree with you. I think the Ethna should have gone in on the Bayek to just try. I think that would have been the way that Unarmed could turn this around.
Yeah. But even at that point, it was still the Zenitsu coming in with a skill to AoE stun at that moment, because the Atna wouldn't have had any chance to get an immunity herself. So the whole team was very open to that Zenitsu. So the Zenitsu was really good of a pick, expecting your enemy to be banning that Leo.
Pinkroid getting that second game, taking it to a draw against Unarmed. Now, both of these players are going to get a point. That means Pinkroid still in the lead, right, Say?
Yeah, absolutely. Then, yeah, I think he's definitely ahead right now. So the only one that can come close or overtake it is Malignant. And they don't have a match against one another. So let's see how that will work out. But, and also just in general, I want to see the leaderboards because we had 6 matches so far. A lot has been changing to that leaderboard.
Oh, yeah. We've said it again and again, but today there's the biggest opportunity for shifts going into this. So, and that's why you're going to see big plays from these players. You're going to see them lock in and take this real seriously because, they really want to get as high up on that bracket as possible. The thing about the European League means the better you play in these qualification matches, the better off you'll be when it comes time for playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And we still have 6 matches going on, so there's still a lot of points for grabs. But I think all of the 6 players that we just saw now also played against one another. So those are 6 players being completely done for the league days so far. But we have still 6 more players that can rock in a lot of points coming in. And we have that bracket being shown in just a second.
Yeah, that's right. So they're all completely done for the day. So we are going into 6 new players for new rounds. We're halfway through the day 7 here of the European League. Coming up next, we've got Crispy Bacon up against Jossu. What's up next? So, Say, you were telling me about Crispy Bacon earlier, right?
Yeah, that is. I claimed him as the Lydia guy. That's the only player I've ever seen in a very long time of Sun Dinosaur making Lydia work. Maybe it's the Ragdoll, maybe it's the Gianna, maybe it's something else, but he just simply makes it work, which is a very interesting unit altogether. And I do know that it is a unit you also have.
Yes, so that makes me a big Crispy Bacon fan because we are brothers in Lydia, which is incredible. I love that he could make it work. And guys in chat, we're so happy that you could make viewing this tournament work today too. We're glad you could be here. We got a coupon code at the bottom of the screen. Make it to playoffs is the code, and that'll get you 100 energy as well as a mystical scroll.
Yep, absolutely. Lock those in because most of those on the tournaments, they're always very short of time spent where you can lock those in. So if you haven't yet, go right in it, lock them in. There's probably one of the moderators showing it in the chat as well. And yeah, just one scroll. All you need is one scroll for a good unit sometimes.
Exactly. Oh yeah, dude. I got Destiny off of. Well, I got her off of a Dupe Asher. If I'm being honest, I fed a Dupe Asher, and then I got Destiny off that on Thursday. Second LT5 ever. So that was pretty crazy. So, one scroll, all it takes. You can get a DupeNat 5, feed it. Maybe you'll get Destiny. Who's to say? It's going to be incredible. Guys, we will see you right back here for more. Hello and welcome back to the 2025 European League. I'm Evan, and Say and I have just seen some pretty intense games in the first half of today's tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to be seeing 6 more of those. So, very curious to see where the end of the leaderboard is going to be standing at because we are able to refresh the site ourselves and you're able to do that. I'm pretty sure that exclamation mark SWEL still works and you can get to the site and you can check the live leaderboard on it right now. And we're actually going to be showing it here on screen in just a second as well. And we did already notice that Slaix and Pinkroid are definitely at a comfortable position for making that playoffs. However, Scribble and Bespoon are sitting at 11, whereas Crispy Bacon and, well, Jossu, he played earlier. Crispy Bacon still has to play for. But Jossu is sitting at 10. So it's kind of the position that 11 might be the number of just making it or just not making it.
Yeah, that's the delicate number. You know, it could be safe going into the playoffs. We will have to see because there are still many points available for these players to accumulate over the next few games here. So I think 11 feels pretty safe to me. If I'm looking at this like close of season RTA rankings, I'm like, is this safe? 11 feels pretty safe. Now 10, I feel like 10 is actually potentially a danger spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's still a lot of people to be playing for. We do also see by the leaderboard how it was just looking like that Merle and Jossu can probably not make it. However, they will still be playing it for getting their most amount of victory points in because there is still like, there's a little bit of bragging rights. Like you still want to get some points on the board.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, there's still some game denial to be had. You can accumulate points and still not be last coming into this. There's a lot of opportunities. So Crispy Bacon here versus Jose Lino. This is going to be a fun one. I got to tell you, you know, caster bias coming in hot. Crispy Bacon and I, Lydia brothers. I'm sold.
Yeah, let's see what he can bring, because most of the time he likes to bring it into very speedy comms of the enemy, because then the skill 2 rocks in a lot of damage. However, Joselino has been playing a lot of passives. So much passives that he's been actively locking in 5 passive units altogether.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, that's just calling out for Tessarions, or you know, it's a little more stylish. You could always bring the Dark Gojo into something like that too. Let's see what appears in the pre-ban going into this.
Well, Vanessa as pre-band, which was also a very pivotal unit for Joselino to make all of the other passive units work. And where you might call out for Tessarion, the big issue is if your Tessarion has to Oblivion 3 or 4 units to actually deny the whole team, it becomes very difficult. Because if you have to Tessarion Oblivion a Draconi, but also an Angela, but also a Gapso, they will be cleansing one another. So Tessarion might not be the right option right there. So let's see what Joselino likes to pick without having that. Vanessa actually goes more active playstyle units right now.
Yeah, I love that call out too. You know, you're so right. It's demanding a lot when some of the most potent passives in the meta right now offer passive cleansing. So it's like you can just remove what's being put on. Crispy Bacon bringing the Dark Megami today, Say.
Yeah, Dark Megami, a very interesting unit right there, but the one that's actually been buffed right now and very strong into also the Dark Megami, but also the Ethna, is that Fire Megami. There's already 2 speedlies on the side of Joselino. He's definitely speed contesting in this one. Is he going to continue on that path, or does he maybe like something like a third late pick to just get more turns in?
That's a good question. I could definitely see a Verd being potent. So Jose Liu locks in that newly buffed Okeanos that we've already seen earlier today. Now trying to strip and increase cooldown time on both hits in skill 2. That might have been all he needed to get more tournament play. People are picking him a lot more enthusiastically in the European League already.
Yeah, absolutely. Zeratul, it's one of those units, it's never bad to draft a Zeratul, but is it going to be a good situation in this case? I think there's a lot of denial already on the enemy side that it might be difficult for your Zeratul to get proper turns in. But let's see what Joselino has in that 5th pick.
Yeah, and what Crispy Bacon has brought to the table is a lot of strip option too. Every single one of these monsters has some sort of strip within their kit. Jose Liu is thinking about a Juno, but I don't know if it's powerful enough, and opts instead for the Wind Monkey King.
Yeah, Wind Monkey King looks very good over here with a lot of AoEs, and Crispy Bacon does agree, and therefore we don't have it on the field. And also the unit that pretty much works in every draft, Zeratul, it's not going to be played right here.
Fast bans, by the way. I didn't even see the ban timer appear, and the monsters were already gone. Like, they knew what they were taking out well before that came into it. Here we go, match 7. We are now in the latter half of day 7 here. the Summoners War European League. Let's see this Etna kick it off here in set number 1.
We're gonna go for the strip and stun. Does not connect the stun. So we do have the strip right there. Okeanos still standing right there. However, we have a strip and stun over there. Also not connecting.
Nothing. This is a very dry game in terms of connections right now. Nobody's getting anything. Can this Okeanos break the chain of resistance? He's certainly going to try, and he did it. Oki is the one to increase the cooldown time finally.
Absolutely, but you could also see it right away there is that you have a strip into reset, and then the second head is also a reset. So sure, you don't need the double reset, but the double chance is very nice to have.
It's an awesome buff. Now here is the benefit and also the downside of Oliver. You know, he cycles out of immunity so quickly. That guy's going to be exposed really fast, and Chris didn't even have to strip any of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, this Okeanos is looking lower and lower on the HP, and in the end, Jossu doesn't really have too much of damage in all of those units, because sure, you could get an armor break from a Megumi into maybe some Oliver damage, but I don't really see the damage potential that much coming from there.
Yeah, and also Oliver's pretty low on skills right now. I think because he burned both. He might have one up thanks to the reduction that's built in as long as you increase cooldown time. Here comes Fire Megumi doing absolute work on the Etna and locking her down.
Ooh, can you give this as a boost towards the Okeanos and go for an Okeanos Rain of Stones? Is that going to be the option? Does go for it. Let's see how many stones we can land, because there's a really big difference between the skill landing 3 stones or 5 stones and giving you the chance of actually doing anything. But Chandra has something to say about that.
It was a decent result with 3, but it's just shy of cycling the turn. And of course the Chandra with the stun. Oh, you hate to see it if you're Jose Liu. Now here comes Oliver to further increase the cooldown time of the Etna, making sure she doesn't do anything unexpected, say.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's also going a little bit back and forth, because Oliver could have had more attack bar if he used that third skill on that Megami first and then went for a second skill on that Etna. So a little bit of macro play right there that could have been better, but there we did actually see that first one being resisted and that second one being connected. So where I did not expect Joselino to have too much damage, the Okeanos being alive long enough did actually make it work where Joselino is having some damage.
That's one of my favorite things about that monster. Okeanos can offer both your crowd control, your increased cooldown time, but also he brings damage to the table with that skill too.
Yeah, he absolutely has a good amount of damage, but it's still going to be the question right now. The Chandra is doing a lot of work, and the moment that the Oliver is taken care of, and that's also what Joselino does notice right there, the Chandra is doing way too much work, and he has to deny that unit.
And he tried and failed twice to apply a defense break, so that means he's going to be spreading damage a little bit over here. He's trying to keep so many things on cooldown with this Oliver. You know, he's denying the Water Twins their skills, but he's also got to focus on this Chandra.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, Crispy Bacon is focusing on the Megumi itself right now, but I do think that the Oliver is more of a dangerous target. However, there is still that Fire Megami passive, so every time you hit anything else than that Fire Megami, it will take a lot more turns, and that is always dangerous.
It's so potent. I often compare it to Diana's passive. I think is pretty clear. You know, I rant about this all the time, but I think it's better suited on a unit like Fire Megumi or Tetsuo, because you don't always want to attack a support monster like that. You need to attack Diana because she's the damage, but you know, Megami you'd rather save.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, the Megami is also a little bit more tanky, and so far it's been trying really hard to get any debuffs on that Chandra, but it's not been successful as of yet.
No, not quite yet. These guys are just whittling away at each other. We're seeing that their strategies are vaguely similar. It's like they really wanted to play in this mid to late game area here. Jose Minu, I think, is getting more value though than Crispy Bacon, considering he's got that Oliver who's still looking pretty healthy.
Yeah, the Oliver is looking pretty healthy, but in the end it did not connect that pushback, and because of the pushback, that is where you don't get the proper cycling in. We do get a defense break on 2 units, and Chandra does like himself some defense break.
A big third skill from Dark Megami shifts the tides towards Crispy Bacon. This is a tough break for Jose Liu right now. It's like this whole time, you got to focus on Chandra. You got to take down the Twin Angels from having their skills available. But the whole time, the hug has been on that Dark Megami.
Yep, yeah, and that's also where you really have to be actively checking who has what cooldowns, who did you hit already. Sometimes you even just want to go straight through that hug just to deny the turn, because in the end, a strip into armor break plus pushback, it's just so high of a value, you can't let that through.
It's comparable to what Maximilian brings to the table. That's what the third skill from Megami reminds me of. But he was just hanging out there, biding his time. It was well played from Crispy Bacon. I can't wait to see what he cooks up for us in this round. I would love to see some Lydia, but I know that is more incumbent on what Jose Lino brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also what you see once again where Joselino is getting out of his comfort zone where he does have to play more active units. Most of the time, he's not having that much of a comfortable draft in the first place. So this time around, he does get that finesse because the Kovaci is being pre-banned. I would have rather seen Crispy Bacon ban out that finesse right now because I'm pretty sure, wow, actually, Joselino is switching it up altogether. He's going for Chana rather than his finesse playstyle.
And Crispy Bacon is taking that Fire Megami, that Tetsuo, that has been very impactful today, and also clearly one of the winners of the balance patch.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see what Joselino is going for this time around, because normally it was very easy to predict a bunch more passives, but actually he's been trying to switch it up altogether right now. So we'll be seeing something along the lines of, well, Okeana's come back. That worked out very well last time.
Oh, it's the Water Gojo's return right now. This is the Water Gojo consistently seems to be picked a little bit early, say.
Yeah, I think it's once again a little bit too early because I'm not too sure what it's really supposed to counter in this position. I would almost say that I would have liked the Juno in that position. Maybe it would have been a little bit too much fire, but I would have liked to see that more than this. But now we have a Sonya also being in a kind of an awkward position because sniping out a Chandra is really hard. Sniping out a Gojo, it's not going to happen. It's defense based. Sniping out any fire units, as Joselino picked in the 4 and 5 as well, it's not going to happen altogether. So I'm not too sure about that Sonya, but I did like that Athena at that position.
Whoa, a Yule Dong at the end. That is a really shiny, that's a very fun content pick at the end. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that I think Jose Lino's in a position right now where he doesn't actually have to ban the Sonya. Like pretty much everything on the team comes Sonya proof already, right? I don't think she's going to contribute too much. I'd be happy to be proven wrong though. Let's see what Crispy Bacon's got for us. Maybe his Sonya is better than we think, but I don't know if that's doesn't seem possible to me.
Well, the thing is, we have an Uldong Sonya, so that is a Sonya that gets a free 100 crit damage extra. But yep, that's where you take out units. 100 crit damage extra is where you make it work. But then again, on the other side, there's not too much you can do after that. So let's see how far you can take it.
That, you know, you shouted it out earlier, say that is a hard thing to do. It's not impossible. Chandras are often built real tanky in terms of both HP and defense just to counter Sonyas. That is a testament to the quality of Crispy Bacon Sonya.
Absolutely, but now we have once again a similar thing that we have seen in previous matchup. Sure, you take out one unit, but can you deal with the other 3 units that are still on the field? In this case, we have a Carnal that is just providing all of those slows. Okeanos that's going for the resets, attack bar up on itself. There's a lot of it going on those 2 fire units right there.
So well said. Might be in a position where that Chandra was optional. It might be that Jose Lino only needs these 3 units to take the victory.
Yeah, let's see. The Okeanos was stunned at that position. Can we trade stuns 1 for 1? No, we actually can't, but we have the Fire Megami stealing that defense buff right there.
Yeah, and was that a counter? Ruined on Revenge? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think Revenge is actually, I would say that Offset Seal does make a lot of sense, but Revenge is probably the next thing if you don't want to go for Will. It's definitely an interesting set right there. But then again, we're looking at a draft right now where there's not too much damage on the bottom side. Sure, you could get into an armor break and the Uldong is probably on a crit rate 4, but I have seen Uldongs try to do damage, in most cases pretty difficult, but this Megami is fighting for its life.
Yeah, Yuldong loves to provide that extra damage to his allies, but you know, he himself isn't the one always providing it. Let's see what Crispy Bacon can do here. It's looking pretty bad. He's definitely on the back foot. Jose Lino taking control of this match.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have armor, or we have the additional turns going back and forth. Not too many armor breaks being landed. There's something to say about that for the Twin Angels, getting AoE stuns right there. Uldong, a little bit of healing, a little bit of damage.
Even after that early snipe, it shows that Jose is ready for this. The Gojo procking out a stun, ready to do damage. Look at this. Trying, well, you know, just like he does what he can.
He does what he can, so, but the big question right now is, Oh, can you take out this Cardinal right now? Because if the Cardinal takes one more turn, Okeanos is pretty close to his skills as well. If there goes another cycle of Rain of Stones, ooh, we have another skill 2 coming in, that's a lot more healing. Actually, I feel like the healing value has been doing more than the damage value of that Uldong thus far. But then there's a lot of additional turns rocking back and forth. Sword Rain, how much damage can we do? Can we get some stuns? And that is a good amount of damage, but all slows did connect. That is the important part.
Can he stun up the Water Twin Angels and save the Carnal? He might have a second opportunity here with Okeanos. Operation Protect the Carnal is a go.
Rain of Stones, rocking in a lot of stones right there, but not enough damage to kill anything just yet. But we are saving this Cardinal for dear life at the moment, and you definitely want that to be alive just to have a little bit of extra chip damage right there.
We just saw the power of the patch too. We saw one hit of that get resisted and the other increased cooldown time. There we go, Carnal securing the kill on the Tetsuo. Now it's all on Water Gojo and Okeanos to maintain this lead, while Carnal is just on life support there at 1 HP.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why we see where it's definitely difficult to rune an Uldong to the extent where you want it to be faster than your other units. Therefore, it can actually strip something, but also deal enough damage. It was just on the edge of dealing enough damage to make it work. So, sure, the Sonya did take out that Chandra very well in that first turn, but then again, you still have to deal with the other three.
That was awesome. What a showing there. We got a 1-1 for both these players right now. It's like you said, the Sonya was very impressive, but after that, you just kind of look at the comp and you're like, okay, but what now?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also very well picked up by Josselino, thinking like, okay, I already have some fire units being locked in. He's drafting so much towards wind right now, units that just simply cannot deal with fire. I'm just going to go for a full fire draft all the way at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes wins like that, you see them just heavily skewed in favor. It's just elemental relationships. It's just playing to advantages and disadvantages. And sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also one of those units. Not everyone has Okeanos ruined up these days. Not everyone has Cardinal ruined up these days. Let alone having both of them ruined up, because they actually kind of have like a similar kit where their skill 3 is an AoE stun. They might be having overlapping runes altogether. But if you have them ruined up, if they work in the right position, they might be really strong.
It's sometimes hard to have both, like you said, man. But after the patch and after the performance that we've seen Okeanos have today, I would not be surprised if we started seeing him get more popularity in the ladder and in people's boxes. So there we go, guys. We got 5 games left ahead of us today. We are going to see Malignant in the first game up against Merle right now. So Malignant was one of our leaders, our point leaders going into the tournament today. What are you expecting in this game?
Well, it's definitely interesting to see what Malignant is going to be doing, because against Merle, we have seen her playing mostly the same kind of playstyle. She did try to switch it up a little bit last time she played, but it's mostly based on a Juno early pick, Feng Yang, and those kind of style of units. So going for turn 2, but without actual passive units to cut the enemy. So therefore, we have seen some players play very well of just sniping out all of those units and making that work. Malignant has a lot of those snipe units as well, so that's going to be the big question. Is this going to be a contest on the snipe, or is Merle actually going to switch things up? She did do it with the Berghild before, but it might be a unit that also just straight up get pre-banned.
I love watching Berghild in game. That's one of my most wanted units for a reason. It's real cool. So Merle's going kind of for a more bruiser approach. Malignant is probably ready for this. We'll see if Merle maybe took that into consideration going in here, maybe ruined up something in addition to just kind of throw a wrench in the plans here.
Yeah, let's see. They're definitely taking a lot of time for the pre-band, so maybe they're searching for a unit they can't find, or they're actually thinking about it right now. But I think that these two players had enough time to think about the pre-bands. We actually have a pre-band on a Vivachel and a pre-band on Gianna.
Great choices. Man, the Vivachel is very impactful in this situation. It's great to just knock that out early. Combo facilitator, late game winner, sometimes can just sneak a kill in there. Great unit all around. Malignant, let's see what he's prioritizing going into his first game of the day.
Most of the time he does like his Oliver, going Oliver, Yeon Hong, Gianna. Those are his core 3 that he really likes to utilize. But if he doesn't have the Gianna, he also likes to go for Laura. Then again, Merle does also have Laura, so it could be one of those units that could be a potential steal.
The Juno, very early, like you said, it's like Juno is such a good monster that even early she can be good, and she's also great into Oliver, considering she's usually ruined on Despair and Revenge, and also the Feng Yan that you foreshadowed.
Yeah, definitely going back to the comfortable playstyle of Merle. Actually, Malignant is picking up that Okeanos as well. It isn't good unit into this, but what we have seen being so far very successful into Merle is just sniping something out, and there Oliver does a very good job. Or
And
not
that's
Oliver,
exactly
the Han.
what he is threatening right now. Look at that. Wow. Let's see what she wants to answer back with right now. She wants to continue down this path, maybe bring something that'll help make this team a little more snipe proof, say.
Yeah, the ways that she tried to do snipe-proof units before was more along the lines of Shizuka, but I'm not really sure if Shizuka is the right option over here because you already have 2 resetters on the enemy side. We actually go for a more and we go for that Burkill, so there's a little bit more of a back and forth on between being Bruiser but also being first turn.
And also, if you're drafting so many passives, Shizuka gets to be weaker and weaker, right? Because it lessens their impact when you bring them back using that skill too. Malignant doubling down on the snipe here, bringing the Raccoony and locking in a Zeratul as that 5th pick there.
Yeah, definitely also more of Malignant going for an all-round comp. So it's more of an all-round Bruiser comp. Sure, we're contesting turn 1. Maybe the Han can do something. Maybe the Burkill can do something. But it's also all about the Bruiser setup. And then we have the Raccoony and the Zeratul being a really good combination in 4 and 5.
And looks like maybe a Wusa is what she wants to go with. I'm not super sold on the Wusa purely because of how much strip is available on this comp, and also the reset from both Okeanos and Oliver. But I don't know. What's your assessment there? Say.
I would say that the Wusa's probably banned because I expected on the other side the Okeanos to be banned. Because if the Okeanos is banned, sure, the Zeratul can still do enough things. But it's going to be the big question. Is your Zeratul faster on a very low base speed than all of these units that are 105 or 107 base speed?
And look at that. The Burghild's so fast, man. And also her own personal Ragdoll or Wedgeat or Amduat, combine all of them together. Getting the stun on Okeanos right there, shutting him down, denying his ability to increase cooldown time or get stuns for that team.
Absolutely, and we have simple solution right now. We're looking for an early armor break. Got armor break on the second to last hit, so not that much damage from the skill coming itself. But then we have a Zeratul coming in with the 12 into double 6.5, and that is just simply so much damage.
Oh wow! Then early kill on the Burghill. That hurts, man. That really hurts because that was one of the best units to age into this game here.
Absolutely, but then again, we also had that Juno with that stun on that Han. Han had the potential to go for that skill too, but now he has an armor or an attack break on it, and also that Juno does do a lot of damage, so the Han is not looking so lively right now.
Yeah, and now Malignant just whittling away at the Feng Yan this time, just going piece by piece here, disassembling Merle's team. This Han here, now he's going to get a stun. Oh, maybe not. Maybe no stun. This actually could give more the opportunity to despair stun. Unfortunately, he missed out on it.
Yeah, if they more had the chance to despair stun at that moment or take the additional turn into the skill too, I definitely do see a potential for a comeback. But we have seen this Juno do a lot of damage, so that's definitely the potential for, if you have a really good set on a unit, you might be drafting it a little bit more than something else. Once again, we see the Okeanos come into play. First hit, resistance, second hit, did actually connect.
I mean, if anybody could come back from this, it would probably be a combination of Juno and Feng Yan, but it's a tall order for sure. I'd go for the skill 2 here, just see if you can get some AoE stuns. Not rewarded with stuns, but you do get the immunity and the attack buff off Zeratul, which is valuable in its own way.
Yeah, and this is the question right now. Can you take out that Zeratul? Because if the Zeratul goes for skill 2 right now, ooh, that counter was just not enough. If the counter was enough to give attack bar to the Juno to actually overtake that turn, wait, I think the Juno might actually still take it because that is just simply so much damage. The Oliver did miss its skill earlier, so therefore also doesn't have a turn. And actually the Feng Yang and the Juno, like you mentioned, it might overtake this match.
They're powerful solo units independently. Together, I think they have what it takes. And also, getting the little bit of attack bar boost from Feng's passive so it hurts less when Oliver takes it away, it's pretty good, man.
Wow, that actually worked out very well. So I did like the pivot style of Merle of going a little bit more Bruiser, but also first turn, rather than she normally would go for Shizuka in that position. But then again, we also have kind of seen it before. Anytime people tend to Bruiser into Merle, that is where Merle is more of in a comfortable position. That is the playstyle that she does like to play. Whereas the people that just goes for a simple snipe, the Yan Hong was available. Yan Hong boost into any unit that could have insta-killed something was available. If you go for those kind of playstyles, it's very hard for Merle to come back from.
Well said, man. Yeah, that seems to be her comfort zone. Getting the point off of our point leader today too, Malignant, or previous going into the game, like that's a tall order. Great job from her right now. Let's see what Malignant wants to bring going into this next game. Were there any perceived weaknesses that you were looking at in that game that maybe Malignant could tend to going into game two?
Well, I think he can play more around his Yan Hong into boosting something and to sniping. But then again, credits where credits due. Merle actually took both a game of the current rank 1 and also the rank 2nd right now, because Malignant and Pinkroid both lost at least one match to Merle while being sitting at the lowest part of the bracket. So that's definitely a shout out for that. That is very well played right there.
So well done. And here comes Juno. I would bring her too, man. Like after that showing, Juno's got that first pick slot. Like that, she's earned it for sure. Malignant doubling down on the Oliver Okeanos combo. They've worked so well so far, and now Merle's just getting enhanced with the Viva Shell now that she's freed from the pre-ban slot.
Absolutely. The Gianna's maybe in a little bit of an awkward position because there's already 2 units on the field that you guaranteed can't stun. So I'm not sure if Gianna is more of a comfortable pick and therefore you may be locking it in, but it's not really a countering pick on anything that's on the field at this moment.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just realized that Celia's in the pre-ban. I just saw chat was talking about that. I didn't even notice. Yeah, it's like it's an illusion. You know, Malignant's trying to keep the Viva Shell away by banning her sister.
Yeah, that's definitely something that doesn't really work. Maybe you think like, oh yeah, she's in there. It's like, but then again, you look through your own box and the unit still lights up, and it's like, I can still pick this. But in the end,
yeah, it's just psychological damage is being done.
Yeah, it's definitely
it's pre-ban.
It's definitely an interesting run right there. Also, Malignant is not showing any form of healing in his first 4 units right now. So, and it's also not showing an insane amount of damage. So I think that Merle actually might have a decent draft at this.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. You could potentially just ban out the heal and cycle if you're so inclined there and get rid of the Yan Hong and then just out sustain the enemy team. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely would go for that because the Bella is not the greatest of units to take care of a Juno as well. So I think you have a pretty good setup if you ban that Yan Hong. Then again, on your side, a lot of options could be banned as well. She bans out that Gianna. Strange to see because 2 units cannot be stunned by the Gianna and the Juno even likes that stun.
Yeah, so now I'm wondering if maybe Merle's hoping that she can find an opportunity to take out that Yan Hong by just using a skill 3 from Viva Shell at the right opportunity. There's opportunity. There are ways that you can do away with the Yan Hong after the pick ban, but and double resisting from Okeanos is one of the ways to do that.
Yeah, we have been praising Okeanos all day for at least landing one of the 2. Well, at least the Burkilt went for the same thing as well, going for the double resistance. However, I am pretty sure that this Oliver is 100 resistance Oliver, whereas a Burkilt most likely isn't 100 accuracy. But Okeanos is most likely a 4 accuracy unit right there. But yeah, we have been praising the Okeanos so far, but it did not work out this time.
Yeah, the Okeanos glaze has been different today. It's been big after the patch. The Laura is on her last leg already, man. Like there was some big damage coming out from Bella a second ago. So Malignant pulling ahead early, but with procs like that from Berghild, we might actually be able to see something happen.
But not if Yan Hong has something to say about it, and therefore it was also definitely the ban for me. I would even maybe have doubled it down in the draft itself too, rather than going for units that can also go for a simple, like, you don't care about any stunts. Adding in a Fire Monkey, adding in any other units that just cannot be stunned, and then just letting that Gianna through. But in this case, the Yan Hong is having a lot of value in this match.
Say, I am so with you, man. Like, I think when you pointed out that there was no healing on Malignant's team, I think that was actually the key to victory. I get it, though. Honestly, when you're in a tournament setting like that, in a pick ban phase, it can sometimes be hard to look and see that, you know? Especially when you're looking at all these increased cooldown times, big damage, etc. It might be hard to identify. But yeah, I think Yan Hong was the ban.
Yeah, absolutely, because in the end, the Yan Hong, like, sure, Gianna would have had decent value, but I think the Gianna was maybe drafted a little bit too early. Like if the Gianna was drafted in the slot 5, it would have been for sure a ban, but then you would have drafted differently around that altogether as well.
And look at this. So it's like, Viva Shell doesn't have the skill 3, but if she did, right, and she boosts if she swaps the HP and attack bar with Yan Hong, Malignant's got that skill 3 from her, so that way she can heal herself right back up again. So this is a real tough matchup right now.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, credit where credit due, still managing to take off 1 point from the top of the leaderboard though.
Yes, that is a tough thing to do. Malignant was right up there with Pinkroid today at the start of the day. It's one of our point leaders, and like that's very well done. Merle taking it to a draw up against Malignant. Both players walking away with 1 point, say.
Yep, absolutely. So let's see what that would look like for the following matches that are coming. We still have one more match coming in this set of 3 that we have. And yeah, I'm just curious to see. We're actually going back to Crispy Bacon. So let's see if he actually becomes the Lydia guy just for Evan here on the stream.
Oh, that'd be so cool if he did. I have never seen Lydia drafted in a tournament setting like this. I never. You know, I love her to a degree. Lydia is a tough monster to bring because the failing of Lydia is that she depends on your opponent to not know what she does. As soon as they understand what her passive does, it's kind of over for her.
Exactly, but it's also difficult to find the right matchup where she does get the turn at the right moment, is tanky enough, has enough speed to get that turn, but also then again does enough damage. You actually have to have very good damage runes on her. And then the question is, do you get that on Nemesis Blade Will? Do you get it on a Rage kind of set? Like, I don't even know how that is runed, but we have seen it work a few times so far, but let's see if you can make it work. And actually for the whole current set that we have been going for, it's just all draws. It's a lot of draws. People are sharing the points.
It's a lot of draws back to back. Let's see if somebody can get a 2-0 going into this. I don't know if Crispy Bacon, if somebody's got that intel on Crispy Bacon right now. I'm a big fan of double Nemesis Will on my Lydia. Now, my big fear now, say, is we're seeing a lot of Okeanos in play too. We're seeing more increased cooldown time than ever before. And so now I think Lydia might actually be worse because if you reset her, force her to burn all of those stacks she's been building up on skill 1, that's a big weakness.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well pointed out right there. So it's definitely Okeanos is something we have seen a lot more, and Jongnam is something we have seen a lot less. So that's definitely the trade between the units where you would say like, hey, this thing is something that's not working as much anymore. But that's also where you can see the community likes something to be consistent. The moment something gets buffed to be more consistent, it's immediately a unit that is being picked up.
All right, here we go, guys. Crispy Bacon versus Tech. Now, something important to point out is I think Tech is still sitting at 9 points right now, say. So that means that these games are absolutely crucial.
Yeah, definitely. Tech still has 2 more matches, but he is sitting at 9 points. If he wants to get to 11, he either has to win 2 over here, or at least take a draw and then also a draw in the next match to get into a comfortable position. So let's see how that works. We actually have a Heigang ban from Crispy Bacon, so that's definitely going to be a Gianna being picked up at any given moment. Tech has to notice that from the draft itself. Tech is actually an interesting player himself as well. Most of the time he has been running an Athena on either Despair or Violent, but also a Secret on Violent. So that's definitely an interesting solo there. And there we have that Gianna.
Yeah, you called it, man. When you see the Heigang down there, it means that's a free Gianna. Heigang is just the natural predator to Gianna, as well as other strip options in the meta, like Moore, etc., just giving you that free boost. We get the return of Tetsuo, who's also made a big impact on today's tournament.
Absolutely. So let's see if Tech still wants to go for something along the lines of Athena and Secret that he normally likes to do, because Tetsuo is actually countering those 2 units very well. Still goes for that Athena, however.
Yeah, so that means there's a lot of just passive attack bar gain that's going to be coming from that Tetsuo. Gianna is going to be rough up against that Velajul as well here. So let's see what Crispy Bacon wants to bring. We got folks in chat asking if we've seen any Wind Nobara today. We have not. Wind Nobara or Aya, she has not made an appearance yet, which has actually been kind of surprising for me.
Yeah, to be honest, it's somewhat surprising, but I would say that there's a few matches where she would have maybe fit. Actually, this one would be one where it would fit, because, like, to be honest, when we're talking about it right now, and then it rings a bell, and then it's like suddenly, like, if you go for a Juno Aya right now, I think you look at a pretty solid draft from the side of Tech. But then again, is it going to be doing enough to actually make it work? But I would have loved to see it.
Imagine that's what he was searching for. Right? Oh, and he brought her. Oh, let's go, dude. He brought the Lydia at the end. Now, do I think that she's good here? That's a different conversation. I don't actually know if Lydia is going to be that impactful in a situation like this. Like, every unit over there is either tanky or has the ability to be invincible.
Yeah, we have invisibility, but we also have strips on all 5 units. We have a lot of stuns between all of those units. I'm not sure if this is really the position where you want the Lydia, but hey, we're gonna get your Lydia in this match. That is for sure.
If he can make this work, he is my GOAT. Like, Crispy Bacon is my new favorite player if he makes this work. That is, just picking her is honestly enough for me. Let's go, guys. Here we go. The most hype match the whole day so far as I'm concerned. Crispy Bacon versus Tech Tech. Big stuff on the line here for Tech Tech too. He needs to get a 2-0 here and be safe instead of bank on those draws, say.
Ooh, that might have been 100 resistance on that segment right there. The strip did connect, but any of the stuns were full on resisted. So the big question is right now, where do you go for the capture? Capture's also not working, so yes, we are definitely going to be seeing a Lydia work, and that's how he's been playing Lydia altogether. Making sure that the other units on the field are the high-value targets that the enemy has to go for. And we're even gonna get that with an armor break.
We're gonna get the full setup. Man, I'm feeling so spoiled right now, dude. Look at that! We got a Lydia cleave on day 7 of the European League. That's crazy, man. Oh my god.
That was also so much damage, like especially the units that do have a lot of speed. Armor break on top of them. Lydia was doing 55k damage on that Shio. That's pretty much killing that unit twice.
Yeah, twice over. The overkill should get a benefit for doing that. Devs, hey, taking notes. Let's think about some buff ideas for Lydia here. She still needs one. Don't let this dissuade you. That was pretty great, though. Crispy Bacon with the first win on the board, denying Tech Tech the safety and security of a 2-0 win right here that he needs with 9 points in the leaderboard.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's also very interesting to see also the bans over here. Limas, not a unit we see all too much. Tech Tech has been using it before. That is definitely for sure. But the Mega Bee being banned rather than the Gianna being banned, for example, is also an interesting take.
Yeah, 100%. That was pretty cool. I would have liked to see that game again with maybe if Tech Tech had gone in with the Etna on the Sekhmet. I think maybe there could have been a little bit more volatility in that game if you couldn't reset the Velajewel, but we'll see. You know, there was still the strip from Gianna, still the strip from the Dark Megami. It just puts more accuracy res opportunities on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. But this match, we're looking definitely at a different style of match right here, right now. Let's see what he kind of wants to go with the Gianna, because the Gianna right now is not showing all too much damage if Tech Tech plays his cards right on just going passive units, such as a Bracuni, Juno. Maybe it's a little bit too heavy on fire, but definitely you're going to go for passive units right now that don't care all too much about any of the units on the enemy side. And Bracuni works. Angela would have also been an option.
Got to hand it to Crispy Bacon, too, securing that Hagang early so that way he can get a free Gianna and at least, force Tech Tech into a ban situation instead of counterpicking. This Amber is a really cool addition to the team, considering there's going to be a few debuffs in play. Ironically, another good opportunity for a win no Bara, but I'm starting to think it might be a lost cause, say.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see any win Baras, but I definitely do think that the both Battle Angels are not going to be participating in this fight. But I do like the draft of Tech Tech a little bit more. But let's see what the two gentlemen would ban right here.
The ban on the Sonya. The ban on the Hagang, too, that one's a little bit interesting to me, though I guess we do have some recurring shield buffs from the Water Twins and, of course, the immunity from the Zeratul. So you don't want your Wind Monkey accidentally stripping those and giving value to Crispy Bacon. Let's see how this turns out for everybody. Crispy Bacon taking turn 1 and stunning the entirety of Tech Tech's team.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about this ban on the Hagang as well, because in the end, if Amber takes a proper turn right now, there's just so much damage coming in. Same for the Zeratul. The Gianna had too much value right here. I think that the Amber just... I don't think that a Hagang would have done any of those things that the units that we do now see on the side of Crispy Bacon.
I don't think so either, man. I think maybe banning one of these damage options was it. You shouted out. You said these Battle Angels should not be in this game, and I agree. I think maybe the Amber should have been banned as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then again, it was the Zeratul being able to take out the units straight off the field as well. But now we have a lot of back and forth, and the moment that Amber just takes a few turns, she doesn't really care about elements. She's gonna do a lot of damage to that monkey.
Yeah, there's still game to be had here, but if Crispy Bacon takes this one and gets a 2-0, that is gonna be real bad for Tech Tech, considering it's the last day to earn points. Oh, and a 2-0, say.
Yeah, that was a very quick 2-0 right there. First off, Cleave with that Lydia, so much damage coming in, not able denying the turns on the enemy. The Sekhmet, it did not connect. Then again, Sekhmet could be one of those units that you're just looking for your fastest slot 6. Your fastest slot 6 could be accuracy, could be defense, could be HP, but it could also be resistance. And that is one of those crucial things. A monkey, it can stun, but stunning something that is 100 resistance, that's going to be very difficult.
It's tough. It's a tough ask. It's hard to get the monkey to stun something when you got a very low chance like that. And looking at the leaderboards now, Crispy Bacon moving up there, and unfortunately Tech Deck staying down there. So he's still got one more game today, right, Say? But he's going to have to really make some magic happen and also hope that other people don't climb too high.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still all to play for. If he can get a 2-0 victory, depending on how the other people will play, he might still make it, but it's going to be very close. Because in the end, we also still have Charge playing, and Charge still has 2 matches to go, and he's currently also sitting at 9.
It's a lot of hoping, in addition to good play, that Tech Deck's got ahead of him for the rest of the day. So keep your eyes peeled for that leaderboard. Keep it refreshing. You'll see adjustments happen on the fly here on stream as well. We just saw Crispy Bacon get a 2-0 up against Tech Deck, and we're going into Malignant's second game of the day up against Charge right now, Say. So what are your expectations for these players in this match here?
Well, Charge has been showing a lot of silver playstyle together with Jongnam. He was actually one of the Jongnam players that really like to go for Jongnam as a first pick. So that's one of those things that has been nerfed right now to the point where we saw it a little bit here and there, but we haven't seen people be that comfortable with a Jongnam. But those are 3 matches that we're going to be seeing after the break. So we're going to go into a little bit of a break right now. So far, well, I can ask you right now, what was your favorite moment of today? But I think I can already fill that in. That's not going to be that difficult,
man.
right?
It was the Lydia. Oh my God. I didn't think that I'd see it. And I'm so happy I did. I feel spoiled. I think Crispy Bacon's amazing. I'm already looking forward to the rest of these games, guys. We'll see you right back here after a quick break. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to day 7 of the 2025 European League. I'm still Evan, and this is still Say. Man, this has been an amazing tournament so far.
Yeah, absolutely. We got the Lydia in there. We got everything so far. We have a lot of back and forth. We actually have a lot of balanced patch units being picked up, but not the ones that we were expecting that much, because the Windobara is something that's everyone been talking about. But we haven't been that many just talking about Okeanos or the Shiho, which are actually the 2 units that have been picked up the most.
Yeah, that's true. They've seen a lot of representation. They have been the balance patch reps today, right? We've seen Oki pop off. We've seen Shiho done some middling work today. He's done a little bit of good stuff in there. Surprised at how much Jongnam we're still seeing, and also shocked at how little Wind Nobara. So during the break, Say and you and I were like looking at the leaderboard a second ago, and we were looking at that number 9 as kind of that's the bottom floor for having a chance of getting in.
Yeah, absolutely. So we still have Tech that has 1 match to play, but we also have Charge that still has 2 matches to play. So those definitely could climb up right there of getting more victories in. So Jossu is currently sitting on the position 7, might be just on the edge of like, okay, it really depends how the other people are going to be playing right now, if they can get any victories. And also Charge is playing against Malignant and against Merle, so that's top of the leaderboard and also bottom of the leaderboard. But it depends. If Charge takes a 4-0 right now, he can climb a lot of points still.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But really, where Charge wants to be is just 2 points up. Just as, and that's doable right now. Malignant though is a real tough opponent, so this is going to be a tough matchup for Charge going into it here. What does he have to do to get the points that he needs in this matchup?
Well, it's definitely a difficult question, because in the end, Malignant has a lot of those units, but if he's drafting a full comp without any sustain, Charge does have an Achroma, and Achroma comes in very well. Achroma plus a Juno combination in slot 4 and 5 might actually take that victory right there. But let's see if Malignant is going for a slight bit of a different draft than he was doing against Merle before.
Maybe he's got some surprises for us today, and I'm sure he does. Being such a crucial day, the last opportunity to earn points before the playoffs, I'm sure you've got some surprise picks in the back pocket that you can pull out up against these folks who might not be anticipating it. Maybe they hadn't seen you pick in the pick ban phase up until this point here. See if Malignant's got waiting for us here with the Vanessa pre-ban, the Yanhong pre-ban, Charge locking in that Oliver there, Say.
Oliver, also a comfortable pick for Malignant itself, so it's definitely a little bit of a steal too, rather than just being a comfortable unit for yourself. We once again have that Okeanos being locked in, but let's see what he goes for speed lead right now. It could be Twin Angels. Yep, we go for Twin Angels.
I think these 3 have probably been the MVPs of the tournament. I'd maybe throw a Tetsuo in there, the Fire Megumi, but I think that these guys have had properly good representation today.
Absolutely, they have been picked a lot. It's a little bit early for an Irene. Most of the time you want to be playing Irene into a bruiser comp, and where you do know that you're not being outsped or reset. Okeanos in this case, especially with a boost of a Twin Angels, you might get outsped, but that's an early Juno. But I think that the Juno is really good into the Okeanos as well.
Getting to just wake up after Rain of Stones is often good, but being that early does give Malignant the chance to bring double threats and killing potential with the Masha and then the Jongnam. So what do you think of the Jongnam here, Say?
It's a little bit of an interesting position. It is not good into the Oliver, but I think he has that Marsha specific for that Oliver then altogether. So there's a lot of one-to-one traits like, hey, this unit is good against that unit is good against that unit. But then do you have a strong comp together? Because Gianna and Okeanos is also a little bit of an awkward position. Sure, you could go for Gianna skill 3 and Okeanos skill 2 and then later skill 3. But a double skill 3 from both of those units aren't really going to help you much, except against the Miying, because a Miying you want to stun twice.
Yeah, so being able to reapply stun may actually be valuable here. Love the Chow pick, actually, because the Chow is a kind of, you could think of it as a duplicate Juno that deals damage here. Now the Dominic is very threatening up against him, as well as technically the Oliver too.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think we see a Dominic ban, and actually most of the time on the European streams we're like, Chow, it feels like it's really good, but then we go into the match and the Chow is doing absolutely nothing. So we're always kind of memeing on the Chows. So I'm curious to see, well, actually in this case we don't see the Chow making it through the match, but I think the Miying is probably still a more dangerous unit than the Chow, but let's see if the Miying can make it work.
I think you said it best. I think you had a video back in the day where you said that Chao is best in the pick ban phase, and I think that is exactly true for Chao's situation. It's like you look at him in the pick ban, you're like, this is a duplicate Juno effect. He's gonna wake up, he's gonna justice me, but in game it doesn't always work out like that.
Absolutely. Ooh, we also see a very fast Irene. That is why it was picked. However, I'm not too sure about locking out that Masha right there. Sure, the Masha could have done a lot of damage, maybe instantly killed something. But then again, you have an Okeanos stun potential, and I'm not sure if Malignant timed out right there, but the skills he used right there, that is definitely a timeout, I think.
That's what it seemed like to me too, though it might have been Malignant replanning what he was originally going to do, right? Because with locking out that Masha, using the defense break from the Twin Angels into a Masha kill is no longer possible.
Yeah, definitely, but it's also interesting to see that Masha not being, or the first one being locked out, because if you do that on the Okeanos, you don't have the reset on your Miying. There's currently a bomb plus a stun on that Miying, plus it still has cooldown decrease. So the Miying is not going to get into play anytime soon.
No, the Miying is functionally taken care of. Also, that Juno is doing a great job here. Got a little despair stun on the Masha to deny the turn. Here's Okeanos trying to pull this back into Malignant's favor right now, throwing out some stuns here. Ultimately, only one truly landed because, the Juno's just going to wake up.
Yeah, the Juno's still going to wake up. Does also provide the target on the Juno right now. And the Juno's just simply doing a lot of work, and Charge does have those great runes, great artifacts to make that Juno shine. But once again, this being is just simply not participating, whereas the buff that he got made it where he started participating normally.
Yeah, and look at that. One more bomb position there with the dot to take him down. Malignant doesn't need to dedicate any more turns towards that Miying now. He can fully shift his focus towards the Irene.
Yeah, absolutely. So the big question is the Masha. Can you at some point also comfortably take out that Juno? And I definitely do think it's one of those units that can. So can you go for it? Does go for it. That's a lot of damage, but you're going to be moving in front of that Juno. And with a focus shot, you will definitely take it out.
That's it, man. Yeah, here we go. Water Twin Angels to clean up the Juno. The Miying is already gone. We got 3 versus 2 here between Malignant and Charge.
Yeah, absolutely, and it shows that the Masha was placed very well, but in the end, I think it was just a strange interaction of that Irene going on that Masha. Sure, the Masha might have been able to take out something on that first hit altogether, but having your Miying stunned throughout the whole match, not participating in the fight at all, that's a really big miss right there.
I see what you mean, man. Yeah, because it's like in the moment, right? You see that one monster as just the biggest loss you could possibly take. But is that bigger than Miying losing 3 or 4 turns just for being perma-stunned? I don't know. I don't think so, actually.
Yeah, exactly, and it's also Masha might have taken out any of the other 2 units, but Miying is one of those units. It can be a key winning factor. If it takes an additional turn on armor break, it starts cycling, doing so much damage from that unit itself. And that was the unit that was supposed to counter the Okeanos and the Gianna. Well, then again, in this case, we're not going to see neither of them.
Yeah, so again, for the folks who are keeping track of the leaderboard here, Charge sitting at 9 points. Meanwhile, Malignant is comfortable at 14, now 15, given that one win that he just got.
Yeah, absolutely. So if Malignant takes this victory, he will actually get to the first position as well, because he has more victories than Pinkroid has, because Pinkroid has more draws. So then he would actually take a comfortable first position. So Malignant still wants that final point. But then again, Charge is looking for that point as well, because if he can take at least 1 over here, he only needs just 1 more in that final match for him.
Yeah, and then, there's always the chance where if he gets that 1 point here and gets a 2 later on, then he'd be sitting real comfortable at 12 instead of 11, which would be far superior for his situation here. Now looking at this pick ban phase, Malignant continuing with that Oliver Okeanos trend, but this time bringing a Yanhong.
Yep, it's definitely a lot of Okeanos, but so far he's been working very well. And if you pair an Okeanos with a Yanhong, you technically have a segment that is more consistent. So that's actually a really strong pair right there.
Yeah, 100%. Let's see what Charge wants to bring. This is kind of crazy, Say, because I'm actually surprised that this is the first Meiho Wang that we've seen drafted all day today.
Yeah, Meiho Wang, since the last season, kind of fell a little bit off meta, but the main reason he fell a little bit off meta was Jeongnam. Jeongnam just denied him so many turns and just did so much damage with providing that branding on him. And I think that's one of those units that kind of made him shift out of meta, but it takes a little bit of time for people to then remember, like, hey, I was using this before. His hardest counter is slightly nerfed right now. Maybe I should be using it more right now. But a Mei Wang is definitely interesting right here. He could have went for a double water draft because it's very fire heavy on the enemy side. But then again, if you have very strong single target damage dealers in dark, those might be better.
Yeah, the element neutrality is always good, but it could be better if it was water, like you said. Mei Ho Wang might see a return into the spotlight. I mean, considering Jomnam got the nerf and then Okeanos getting a buff, we might see a little trade off here, and Mei Ho Wang might get a little more popular. See how it performs for charge here. He's going to be leading the charge on the Monkey King agenda, and then Jeongnam, man, you speak the name, and he comes into existence here in that 5th pick slot.
Yeah, definitely an interesting position right there. Would that be a ban on the Oliver and try to get Jeongnam the skills in? But then again, Jeongnam's skill cooldowns are somewhat lengthy. And you have an Okeanos with resets and an Oliver with resets. So it might be a difficult thing to actually get skills off.
I would almost think about banning the Yanhong so that way there's like way little sustain, and it seems like Charge is in a similar headspace here. Deny the healing and the attack bar boost as well as the bit of damage that she provides. Considering there's so much fire, the thing about Oliver is he's pretty much element neutral with what he's trying to do. So it's always difficult, right? Oliver is never a bad choice, but it's like if you can outlast the team, you might have a shot.
Absolutely. But in this case, we actually have the Jeongnam moving in front. So we can provide stunts right now. But this is where you normally would have liked to see the absorb, and that's not gonna happen in this case. But it's all eyes on that Zeratul. Zeratul still gets the skills in, plus Zeratul has that immunity that doesn't run out unless it's being stripped.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Imagine this situation, but with Jeongnam absorbed. Like you could get a branding situation in here. You could get some true damage. That guy was a menace. Also, well done from Malignant trying to keep that stun on Vivichel. He locked in on that Vanessa damage.
Also, we did not have a crit on the side of that Vivichel. If you had a crit on that Vivichel right there, you would have definitely taken out that Han right away. But now it's going to be the question. Are you going to be taken out or are you going to go for freeze? Does go for the freeze and leaves it for the Raccoon to take out that Han right there.
Oh, yeah, really well read there from Charge. Sometimes it takes a lot of patience to slow down, look at the attack bars, and not get overexcited on the tournament stage here. It's so well done. Now we can set up a defense break, try to strip the attack buff. There you go. Win-win situation.
And we do still get the freeze over there. Actually, the sleep was resisted. As mentioned before, I'm pretty sure that this is a 100 resistance Oliver. Vivachels most likely aren't on a full activation rate or a full 85 accuracy. So therefore, that sleep was resisted. If that sleep connected right there, would have been very crucial.
Yeah, that would have given him the window that he needed to pull ahead in this game. Vivachel getting immunity on everybody, but it looks like we're going to cycle out from everyone before it gets to the enemy's turn.
Absolutely, but I did also spy a quick increased cooldown on that Okeanos. So Okeanos is not having the skills that he would like to use right now. So that's more and more giving the chance to that Vivachel to get the Song of Destiny, or I'm pretty sure that's her third skill type, is gonna get in at some point. But no, we have the Zeratul moving just in front of the Oliver, just in front of the Vivachel, resetting everything once again. And Oliver is looking to do some Oliver things right here.
That was perfect timing for Malignant. Those attack bars lined up so excellently for him to just sneak in there with that third skill, put Viva on cooldown. Even though he's at a 3 to 4 monster deficit right now, Malignant is pulling ahead.
Absolutely, and it's once again to showing the sheer power of that Zeratul. There's so much dots coming in, there's so much just damage coming in from that unit altogether, and as long as he is alive, you still always have a chance to win.
And it shows you the power of Raccoon. It's so funny to say, right? But that actually made Malignant sink one more turn of Zeratul into the Vivachel to secure the kill, because otherwise she would have lived thanks to Raccoon's cleanse.
Absolutely, but Zeratul is just making, well, it's not making quick work of things, but with additional turns, it's definitely making quick work of things. It's just such a strong unit that is so hard to deal with if you don't take care of it like in an early turn. That's just the cycling of the immunity. There's never an off turn. Like most of the immunity bringers to an AoE, such as a Wusa, such as a Velaju, they always have that one off turn where you can actually hit them where they don't have immunity. Zeratul does not have that off turn. It's always there unless you strip it.
Yeah, Zeratul is one of my favorite monsters to watch from like a viewer perspective. I think he's just so fun. He's got impactful turns. Procs mean a lot to him. Big damage. That was a good last ditch effort revive from Charge because Vanessa was going to go the way of the dodo. Here we go. Malignant 2-0 up against Charge, putting Charge in a very difficult situation and keeping him at 9 points on the leaderboard, say.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a very difficult situation. That does also mean that both Tech and Charge are still sitting at 9, whereas Unarmed is sitting at 9 and Jossu is sitting at 10. So there's still a lot of between those 4 players of what position they can get in. And I think everyone from position 6 and up in the leaderboards right now is probably locked in, but you never know what happens.
It's crazy to say, right? But yeah, I think we might be in that position right now. Again, we've been looking at 11 as that magic number to get you in the top 8. Because for folks who might be joining in a little bit later into the day, that's what these folks want. They just want top 8 because that means you qualify for the playoffs, which are happening on the 12th of April. So you can catch more from the top 8 players. If you like their play style, you can see more of them in the playoffs of the European League. But today it's all about that top 8, say.
Yep, absolutely. So I do also hear that Malignant now has the same amount of points as Pinkroid, but Pinkroid won the 2-0 or Malignant won the 2-0. Wait, it's worded in a way where I can't really properly read it, what it is, but let's see. Oh, no, wait, we're going to the brackets first. So we'll see that on the leaderboard later at this moment. But 1 and 2 spot are definitely for Malignant and Malignant and Pinkroid right now. But we still have Tech Charge. Those are the 2 players that could actually still make it to the playoffs. But we also have Jossu and Merle maybe preventing those.
Yeah, they might. You're right. They might be keeping them down in terms of points here. So we've just seen Malignant versus Charge. We're going into Jossu versus Tech here. This is the last ditch effort for these guys. Let's see what they can put down here. Say, what would you be doing in their situation if you had to get points on the board right now? What would you bring?
It's definitely difficult to say. I would say comfortable playstyle is still good, but we have seen it that Jossu is switching off his passive playstyle, which hasn't been using that, or it hasn't been working that well for him altogether. So might he go back to just the full-on passive playstyle that he did before with the Sahat, with the Raccoon, with the Angela, and all of those kind of things? Because I think it works very well against Tech. But then again, Tech, would you start stealing that Vanessa that enabled all of that playstyle as well?
Good question. Pre-ban's coming in. Etna's down there. Kovarchi's down there. So we're not going to be seeing the immunity and attack buff setup here. These are good. These are well-studied pre-bans, say.
Yeah, definitely. Hey gang, first pick. That's an interesting one against an enemy that most of the time likes to go for passive play rather than very active play. So let's see what Tech would like to utilize based on that Hey gang. Is he gonna go for, I don't really expect like a Layla Tomoe Hey gang kind of combination, because that is definitely where we're gonna see that with Nobara.
Yes. Oh, dude, if there was ever an opportunity, that would be it. Well said. Jossu locking in that Vanessa and still the water Gojo. I swear he's never been the problem, I guess, in a game. We've talked a lot about him being picked a little too early because you really want to see him against AoE attack bar pushback. But I feel like there could be something a little stronger in that slot.
Yeah, I definitely do think so as well. And I'm liking the picks from Tech because the combination of a Lima and also a Sigrid together with a Heigang is really strong, because the moment you have a Heigang without any buffs in a later point of the match, then Heigang is only good for that first turn and maybe a little bit here and there. But we actually do see a Windobara right there. But then again, Windobara is placed into invisibility, and into invisibility she doesn't do any damage. She only does damage on herself. So let's see if it works out right here.
It's happening. I'm excited to see it one way or another, but is that going to lock you into an unfavorable ban if you really want to bank on it? So this is going to make the pick ban phase a lot more complicated for these two. Whoa, Tech bringing some gas right now with the Beelzebub, the Dark Demon, and the Lars.
I actually really like that Dark Demon pick, whereas normally I'm not a big Dark Demon fan because it doesn't do as much damage unless it's really low on HP. But there's one unit that controllably or uncontrollably does damage towards the demon, which is that Nobara. So might the demon be a good counter to the Nobara? I definitely do think that it is a matchup that they both haven't played all too much themselves as well. So it's definitely an interesting one to see right here.
Yeah, wait a minute. That's something that I had never considered before, because the Window Bara could put that Dark Demon in a position where it's easily killed by accident. And that's exactly what you want if you're a Dark Demon user. Locking in Abellio in that last slot. And so ultimately, I think Tech Deck banned well. So did Jose Linu, because he kind of knew that the Window Bara was going to be the most valuable target on his comp.
Yeah, absolutely. And too bad we're never going to find out how that interaction worked. I would have definitely liked to see how that interaction worked between the two players. But then again, we now have a lot of strips on the side of Jossu, but there is that Hey Gang already. So I'm not too sure if you want to be going for strips right now and then trying to get a potential stun at a later moment.
Oh, I guess he opted to go for it. Gets a proc that is actually not great for him in this situation right now, because that means that he's going to proc out of the immunity.
Yeah, he procs out of the immunity, but also we have start in the end right now, but you do have the Juno follow-up right now. If you send all of your skill 3s, you will have a moment after the Juno skill 2, if it does connect on everything, that you're not going to have buffs for a little bit.
It's a good way to get some free adrenaline stacks, by the way, on that Lars. Throwing him in with the Sigrid. Oh, and here comes the proc and a big AoE damage on defense break.
That's a lot of damage, but Wild Cure has something to say about that. Plus, additional turn, and the Juno still has a turn as well. So I think all of the HP bars goes pretty much close to back to full.
And interesting targeting here from Jose Linu. I would think that you'd want to attack the Lars to make him lose some adrenaline here, but I don't know. What's your take on this?
Yeah, Lars is one of those units. I think a lot of people don't have too much play against them, so they're not really sure how he works. In most cases, you do want to target him to get those stacks in, but also the moment you target him, he does get extra ATB, and because of that ATB, he can get more stacks back as well. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword if you do want to target it or you don't want to target it.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's a cool unit. I really like seeing him in action here. It's kind of rare that you get to see him in a tournament setting. And it's cool that Tech's been using him throughout. Securing a kill on the Vanessa. Can he do the same thing with anybody else? Not exactly.
Not yet, but he's been landing a lot of those skills thus far. And once again, you do have that one stun moment, and Lima says, nope, we ain't doing those stunts at this position.
One thing I got to shout out about Tech too, I love how unafraid he is to use skills that apply tons of buffs into a Juno. Even though the skill 2 might be available, it's like he wants the turn. He wants Sigrid to get the cooldowns back so that way he can get more damage in. I like that.
Well, absolutely, but I think it's also definitely the right play because of that Hey Gang. If the Hey Gang wasn't on the field, I think he would have been a lot more scared doing that, and he should have been. But since the Juno doesn't apply anything when the Hey Gang is on the field, Hey Gang Lima is such a strong combination.
Yeah, well said, man. Yeah, it just makes it so good. You just got to go for it. Lars slowly chipping away at everybody. Abellio doing what he can to keep this team alive.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing. Like, the moment that some units go away, the Lars is very strong AoE, but the moment that there's fewer units on the field, let's say that there's just the Juno and just the Abellio on the field, I think that the Juno and the Abellio might actually have a pretty good 2v3 at this position.
Yeah, because that's the point where the comp is kind of failing, right? It's like when you take a unit down by 40% or to 40%, Abellio cuts in and cleanses himself, brings him back up again. Tech Deck was looking really good, but now he's having a hard time securing another kill.
Absolutely, and he also, Jossu did not connect the kill right there, and he should have done that. There's always that chance of pushbacks happening, stuns happening, a unit taking an additional turn, and if you leave a unit with 1 HP, it might take an additional turn and therefore get that victory.
That was really greedy. Oh my goodness. Tech Deck taking that example now and taking the first win up against Jose Linu. Wow, man. That was... Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. That's we have been saying that a lot here on the cast. Connect your kills. It's always very much like this. Like, I want to use this skill elsewhere, and then I get more value of that. But what if something goes wrong? Keep in mind that what if something goes wrong? It is Summoners War. We often do things seeing going wrong. So you have to keep those in mind. And if you connect your kills, you take a unit out, it can never take that violent proc right there.
Yeah, risk management is a really big part of the strategy here. It's like, if you have a kill that you can guaranteed take, you take the guarantee always, you know? So it's well said, man. I don't think that's a mistake that's going to be made twice from Jose Linu. I mean, it can't. Otherwise, you know, that's the end.
Absolutely, and we also see a very interesting band right there. We have a Lars being pre-banned, which is also the Light Geralt, which unit you don't see out too much, especially not as a pre-ban.
Not often. I make the joke of trauma bans. You know, it's when a unit just is so impactful in the last game that, you know, it's the recency bias takes over and locks it in as a pre-ban. Here comes Tech Deck again with that Hagang. Did really well for him last time, so I don't see why not.
Yeah, absolutely. But if Tech is going for a similar style of draft, I think Joselino has to be looking at units that could maybe potentially go for snipe. Looking at a Sonia or something like that. But maybe keeping that in mind, but not drafting it at this moment, but having a draft that revolves around being able to lock that in at a later moment.
On the return of the Meiho Wang, we've seen this once before. It's prophesied that he returns to a pick ban phase. And then we also get the Angela.
Yeah, Angela is definitely more of his playstyle. Also, the Mei Wang is more of his playstyle with the passives that I mentioned earlier. So let's see if we are more likely to go towards that whole playstyle that he did before. Or is Tech Deck going to go for some snipe units himself right now? Because if you go for, once again, that Lima, maybe add in a Federica. Federica on a lot of buffs does a lot of damage.
That would be cool. No way. Oh, this is great. I love seeing a tech Rocky, but again, it must just have good runes because we're not threatening any revive over here.
No, definitely not. And this is also the position where I think the Nobara, yeah, there's a good amount of debuffs. There's 2 units with AoE defense breaks, so you're very likely to get those in. I think that Nobara, once again, probably is a must ban, and it's in an interesting position.
Super well drafted. Jose Lino is finally finding the positions to weave that win Nobara into a draft. We've been lacking that throughout the day, so it's cool to see it actually actioned on. But now, yeah, Tech Deck, I think, has a lot riding on this last pick. Oh, I would love to see this again. Say, look at that. We're getting the opportunity yet again. I wouldn't be surprised if the bans were the same, though.
Yeah, I definitely do think the bans are the same. Also, it's interesting to see a Dark Demon being picked together with a Lima, because if the Dark Demon has the invisibility buff, the skill 2 doesn't do any damage on itself. No, actually, we have the Dark Demon being left in, and Joselino went for the expectation that the Nobara was already banned.
Whoa, that's pretty cool. So we get half of our content picks. I saw folks in chat saying that it was anti-content bans last time. Couldn't agree more. At least we still had Lars though. Jose Lino taking the first turn, and now he has a choice here. He could strip and give them turns, or he could just let Chandra take turn 2, which I actually think is the right play.
Yeah, let's see how that goes, because could you take out... Nope, can't take it out. Skill 2 Shatter. How much damage are we gonna do? We're actually on Despair, and we landed 2 Despairs, but we also had an additional turn right there.
Yeah, and didn't get a chance to cut in between, so Angela got to add a little bit more HP onto the monkey. In
Both
form
of them are
shield.
Despair. We also have...
Oh my goodness, this is quite the cool build.
Yeah, like both of them are Despair. That's very interesting to see right there. But can you do enough damage? Doesn't do enough damage, but a Demon skill 1 would probably take out a monkey from this position. Well, would you? Yeah, I think you might, because
I don't think you risk it. He's doing it, but I would still go skill 2. I know it's not like usual demon playstyle here, but I mean, if we learned anything, right, you know, just secure the kill. He managed to lock it down though, so all's fair. All's fair.
I think it's a good choice to not go for the skill 2, because the moment you go anytime for the skill 2, the demon's immediately focused. And then if the demon comes back to life, doesn't have the skill 2, it doesn't do anything. And now there's still the threat that he can do the skill 2 at any given moment. So I think it's a good choice for not using that skill 2 and just using a skill 1. It has an okay damage multiplier, but it's not really the greatest of skills altogether.
That's so true. You know, it shows that Tech Deck's reserved enough. You know, he's patient enough to not shift that focus over to the Dark Demon when he doesn't have to. Loses the Etna to Juno's skill 2. Let's see what he can make happen here. I mean, there's not a ton of damage left on Jose Lino's side, but there is a ton of sustain.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of sustain. And I'm pretty sure skill 2 right now would not even kill. It's really... Oh, he does go for it. He does actually manage to kill. So it's just enough damage. He actually did take more damage off himself than I thought he would. But that's the thing with the Dark Demon. The moment he has a little bit of HP, he doesn't ignore defense that much. But the moment you get enough ignore defense in, you can't take a unit out right there.
Yeah, and you know, look at the Angela really did a number on him with the shield. in the passive. Chandra's gone, and now Tech Deck is going to achieve his dreams and get 2 points on the board, taking him up to 11.
Yeah, and that's also where we were focusing, or at least I was focusing on the Nobara giving damage to the demon when you didn't really want it. The Angela was doing the same thing. Because of the shield, you did uncontrollable damage towards a unit while you just wanted to keep it at full HP. But just the shield made it low enough HP where the skill 2 had enough value. Were you to do the skill 2 from 100% HP, then you only have a 50% ignore defense, which is mostly not enough to kill anything.
That's a really good point there. Yeah, we ended up seeing the interaction, but just a little bit differently than we anticipated there. So now if you're Tech Deck, you're pretty happy right now. Are we still feeling that 11 is like a safe spot to be in?
Yeah, I do think the 11, because Jossu is sitting at number 8 right now on 10 points. And Charge with a 2-0 could also make himself towards a 11 points. So then we have all the way 5 to number 8 on 11 points, but only if Charge wins both matches.
Yeah, so a lot is riding on that. That's going to be the last real shake-up moment of the tournament today, whether or not Charge can get that 2-0.
There's also another option. If we have a 1-1 from Charge, then Charge and Jossu are going to be at exactly the same. Yeah, are they exactly the same? No, then Jossu still has 1 extra victory in that case. So, because we have a few criteria on the leaderboard itself, it's first like, okay, who has higher points? After that is who won between the 2 players. So if they got a draw, we have to look at another statistic, which is then who has more games won. And if that is all the same amount of games won, same amount of games draw, then we would have to get into a tiebreaker. So that's something that people on the back will figure out all the way after this match. But I think Charge really has to be focusing on the 2-0. If he goes for a 1-1, I think he still might be out.
Yes, I think you are correct here. So everything on this, can Charge get 2-0 in our last scheduled match of the day? There is the potential, like Slaix said, for a tiebreaker game, but we'll have to see after this one. Charge versus Merle right now. So what are you expecting from Charge going into this one?
Well, we have seen it with Merle before. The moment you give her the chance to be in a bruiser matchup, she plays very well. And we have seen it in previous weeks. The moment that she just has units instantly sniped out, it works better. We also did see that Berghild is on Violent rather than Swift. So it is fast, yes, but it's not super fast on Swift. So that's maybe something you can utilize.
It's good information that can be weaponized going into this. So Laura, the newly nerfed Laura, by the way, just 1 turn of defense buff being applied to Mi Ying in the pre-ban. Totally agree with the Mi Ying getting thrown down there.
Absolutely. Merle is still going for comfortable picks with that Juno. Vivagel is a unit that both of them share, so it's definitely a good unit to be stealing out, because Merle does like it in her playstyle as well, where she's mostly a little bit slower than the enemy, and then Vivagel can take a very good turn of getting that 3rd skill in.
And the Irene again. So this one you said earlier was a little too soon in a draft. Do you still agree with that here?
Well, in this draft, I think it is good because you know what Merle mostly plays, and she's gonna play bruisers without actual passives that much. Which, okay, sure, the Feng Yang has a passive, the Juno has a passive. Berghild also have, okay, there's a lot of passive. All 3 of them have passive right now. I take my words back on that. But it is still a really nice position for an Irene to work in there. I definitely do like the Irene, but that's also the snipe I was talking about. Frederica is really good for the snipes into those things. However, you have to keep in mind, Merle's runes are very high efficient. These units are very tanky.
I feel like you've been calling for a Federica all day today, say.
Yeah, there's a lot of options, well, especially into Merle. Like, we have seen it before. For example, Slaix did it very well. It was just 2 styles of, like, single target cleaves, and the match was over, like, super fast. Now, Merle did switch up a little bit more with that Berghild with a more. But in the end, I'm not too sure if you cannot still just fully on-snipe that still.
Yeah, I really like the more as an answer to this. Oh, and Miles, too. That's great. Tanky water unit into the snipe fire unit option. Of course, the Leo is a good pick. The thing is, Leo is both good and bad for Merle right now. I mean, obviously it hinders the Miles, but I mean, Fang loves it, right? Fang loves it. Berghild is fine with it. Juno likes it. You know, there's it's not a force ban.
No, it's not really a force ban. Like, sure, the Miles is never going to be banned with that Leo on the field. That's a guaranteed. But then again, all of the other 4 units have some form of attack bar increase, whereas none of the units on the side of charge really have a proper attack bar increase. So I definitely do think that Merle could go for just, okay, Miles is going to be my stun unit, and we just keep it at that.
Yeah, and it looks like she is on the same page. I think that's a great call right now. It's like, you don't want to overreact to a Leo, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But now the big question is, the Federica is going to be on the same speed as everyone else. You have to connect that. Ooh, we did get a pushback on that Miles. That's going to be really crucial.
Yeah, now he won't be able to cut in and strip stun anything. Irene's got the lay of the land here and goes to put Feng in the bag, say.
Big question right now. Do you go for skill 2? Goes for the skill 2. Was actually on Despair, but did not connect the Despair where it did want 44k. That's a lot of damage for Federica without any buffs.
Yeah, Federica did exactly what Charge brought her to do here, getting that early kill on the Juno. So well done. And by the time Feng gets out, it's like Federica is going to be closing in on that skill 2.
Yeah, it's definitely the question right now. How fast can you trade the 1-for-1? Because Federica is mostly one of those units you can trade as a 1-for-1. She takes one unit out, and within a few turns, you would do the same thing to the Federica as well. But the big unit to do that is probably that Feng Yang. You have to get the Feng Yang online, but actually, the Federica already has another skill. 34k on that Feng Yang, taking it out.
Look at that, man. So well executed from Charge right there. It's like, put it in the bag. By the time he comes back out, Federica's got skill 2 again. And the fact that Irene's got the bag to begin with means that 1-for-1 with Federica turns more into like a more favorable matchup because you only have to deal with one of the monsters while the other one is in the bag.
Yeah, absolutely. And Federica, like I mentioned, sniping really does work against Merle because once again, we have a snipe gun going in, and it looks like one of the easiest matches out there, whereas it was just like really well drafted. Units connected at the right moment, and it just worked out. And that Leo, in the end, we thought it was maybe a little bit dangerous because the units of Merle had more attack bar increase, but you can't attack bar increase if you're already dead.
Yeah, dang Skippy, dude. That's exactly the case. Man, Charge is making it happen right now. He had to get that point, and he really wants this second one too. It is very important that he gets this second point right here because he is at 9, now 10, thanks to that win. You really want to get to 11 to try to push into that top 8 slot.
Yeah, and I'm actually checking on my left over here as well. There are 2 other players that have exactly the same amount of wins, draws, and loses, and are sitting at 11. If Charge also makes it to 11, that makes 3 of them. So that would definitely be a tiebreaker potential right there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so this will more than likely not be the last game of the day, even though it's the last on the schedule, because we've got to round out those ties. Got to figure out who places where on the bracket. It's very important going into the playoffs here. So now, pre-ban slot, I think the Irene definitely earned her place down there, say.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, first of all, Charge has to be winning this match to get to that 11. Once again, he has been stealing that Viva Chow, and that definitely did work out very well so far. It was bad in the previous one, and we're going back to that Federica, so which is also, once again, a really good unit into a Laura altogether, because Laura does do a lot of damage. Federica takes that damage, takes the Nemesis, takes the turn, and just snipes out a unit.
This is so aggressive from Charge right now. You love to see this sort of play, like to round out like a bracket for a day. It's like he is going for that early kill, the setup into a big ignore defense damage, or just additional damage from the Mi Yang. This is going to be crazy. Let's see how Merle wants to adapt. Merle is kind of bringing something very similar here with the Moor, but this time it's that Shizuka that you foreshadowed earlier today, say.
Yeah, I definitely was thinking about the Shizuka at that position as well. It looks pretty strong in there because you can also steal the buffs from that counter, from the heal over time, but also the vampire and all of that. Then again, Abellio is a good unit there too, but is it going to be doing enough? Because the units on the side of Merle are pretty tanky, and Abellio sure has the healing, but is it going to be also bruisery enough? Well, there we have the Chow. Let's see if the Chow actually makes it into the match this time.
I actually really like the Chow here. There's literally no wind damage threatening him right now. There's debuffs in play, which is exactly where he thrives. You know, he can heal himself potentially over what they are dealing to him. So this is not too bad of a situation. I think you kind of just potentially ban out the Feng and just call it a day, and then maybe the Federica gets the ban.
Yeah, that definitely is an option right there. But let's see if the Federica gets the ban, because I think the Federica is in a really good position. We also have exactly those 2 bans. So let's see how much the Chow does.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a slow whittling down. I think that's what Charge is going for here. I think unless we can get the defense break perfectly set up from Mi Ying into a Justice, in which case it's gonna function very similarly to a Federica.
Absolutely, but Laura still likes to do those Laura things. Do you go for Toy Knight? Does go for Toy Knight. Does actually not stun the Miying. Because in this position, you maybe would have had a stun on the Miying. Because then you could have had the double stun with that Shizuka skill 3 right now. However, doesn't go for it? No, does not go for it. So let's see. Armor breaks. Where do you connect them?
Whoa, that was actually a lot of damage coming from Merle's side towards Charge right now. And also, you see, you know, even 17.4k making waves, possibly deleting Shizuka. So close. You can see that the nerf to Laura didn't inherently change the way that she functions in the game, but it did make a proc from her on turn 1 way worse, because now all of a sudden you lose the speed and defense buff.
Yep, absolutely. And just simply taking out that Shizuka right there. Also, that skill 2 probably did push up the Abelio to just get above range again. So Wild Cure is still available right there. And the Chow is actually working out. But I would like to say that, and I often say that, it also feels like, once again, what if that Chow was a Camilla? Do you think it would have been better or worse?
It's a good question, actually. I think in this case, Chow was the right call, purely because you got the big defense break set up from Mi Ying, and I think Chow is more equipped to make use of it. But what do you think? Do you think Camilla would have been better?
I think a Camilla, it's easy to rune a Camilla on higher damage because she has the damage protection herself. Plus she has the potential freeze. So if you did not manage to kill in the first place, the freeze potential is also really strong with that slow.
Love to see how chat feels as well. It seems like right now from the answers we're seeing, chat is kind of half and half too, saying like Camilla wouldn't have been able to snipe, but at the same time Chow kind of needed the proc. So it's kind of half and half, and I'm feeling the same way. Mi Ying here has a moment to and opts for damage instead of more sustain for the team.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one right there, but I think that Charge has it in the back right now because once again, Chow in this position, he's just gonna take it over. But I do want to mention, a Camilla has more damage output than a Chow on the Justice, or at least if you compare skill 2 to skill 2, because skill 2 does a lot more damage if your allies are dead. At the start of the match, hopefully your units are not dead, so therefore a 1-to-1 damage output, in that case, Camilla would do more damage. But in this case, we actually had a Chow with a victory, and that puts Charge at 11 points. So there's currently all the way from rank 5 to rank 8 are sitting at 11 points.
Wow. Yeah, and 11 was the one, man. That was the target. We said it earlier today. It's like if you're at 9, you're in a sweet spot. If you're at 11, that means that you make it. And turns out to have been right. It was pretty incredible. Charge did a great job getting those 2 wins, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also very well contesting on that VVHL, just knowing like, okay, she likes that VVHL as a later pick. Let's just first pick it. And all of the units that she likes, such as the Juno, she might just take turns at wrong moments because of the attack bar increase. And it's sometimes also one of those units. It's not really that I want to play it. I just want you to not play it. And that was the case for the VVHL right there.
Yes, well said, man. So stand by, everybody, because we may still have a tiebreaker today, actually, because we have a lot of folks that we got to determine where they seat on the bracket, right, Say?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not 100% sure if the seeding matters that much between rank 5 all the way to rank 8, because I think they're all playing in their very first round. But it might matter like who is playing against who, because I would assume that a rank 5 would play against the rank 8. So then it's just more of the determination necessarily of like where are you placed in the bracket rather than skipping a day back and forth.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens right now. We're still determining whether or not we need a tiebreaker going into this. Again, we do have criteria to figure that out ahead of time. So it looks for points, then wins ahead of that. So there are ways that this might actually be circumvented, but we'll keep you guys posted as this continues. So Say, you asked me what my favorite moment of the tournament was, and I told you it was Lydia, but what is your favorite?
Well, for me, it's actually interesting to see the shift in meta, where we were saying like, the balance patch didn't change that much. We saw a little bit of Nobara, but both of the times they were banned, so actually it was a good pick. Otherwise, it's not banned. Simple as that. But on the other side, we saw a lot of Okeanos and we saw a lot of Shihos. And I would say Okeanos did very well. Shio was not that too impressed. So, but I definitely do like to see a bunch of new units in there.
Oh, whoa, and look at I totally agree, by the way. I like that we're seeing the impact of the balance patch in a tournament setting here. It's kind of cool. So we just got word from the back here. We're going to be needing a tiebreaker between Tech Deck and Charge right now in a best of one. So just one off fight. Who can throw down and get a point faster? Because that's all they need to determine it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a few more people that are on the exact same amount of points, but then it determined, like, did they play who won between the two players, because all of the players have played everyone else in this league before. But if that also was a 1-to-1, then they have to be looking at, like, okay, who won more matches to rather having more draws. And if that's also the same amount of wins and the same amount of draws, then we end up with a tie, which does happen with Charge and Tech Deck. As mentioned, best of one. So there's one pre-ban. It really determines, do you get your first pick? You did not prepare against this opponent, most likely, because you prepared against any of the other opponents, and you have to go on the spot right now. It's like playing a match on the leaderboards. You just have one chance.
Yeah, this is a real cool way to end out the tournament today, man. It's like the sudden death mode right now. Did you prepare for every possible situation, even the surprise? We'll see these guys throw down right now in a best of one situation. So this is going to determine the outcome today. This has been a great tournament so far, Say.
Absolutely, but we can also already confirm our 8 players for the playoffs, because in the end, Charge and Tech Deck are only playing for a more comfortable position in the playoffs. So that pretty much means the winner, I would say that the one that is on the position 5 probably has to play against the one on position 8. So, and then 6 plays against 7. So that's the only thing that we're playing on right now. However, all of the 8 players are already confirmed. So Scribble made it in, Vespu made it in, Tech Deck, Charge, Crispy Bacon, Slaix, Malignant, and Pinkroid are going to be the 8 players that are going to be playing on the 12th and 13th of April in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you know, Scribble was real confident that he was going to make it to the top 8, and he was right. He was right now. So that was a great call from him. Well played from everybody in the tournament so far. Say, I'm really glad that we get one more game. I wasn't ready for it to end yet.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me, it's also interesting to see Scribble sitting on 7 draws, only 2 victories, but 7 draws. That's actually the most amount of draws of everyone or anyone in this league right now. The draws, the 1-1s, actually have so much value rather than just being a 2-0 or a 0-2.
They do, truly. We just got word from the back right now. They are doing a coin flip to determine who's going to get first pick. And then after that, we'll be right into the game, folks. Okay, so say Charge versus Tech Deck. This is not something that we had planned to see today. So what are you anticipating from these players going in?
Well, it's interesting to see that Tech Deck has his own playstyle where he has the Revenge on the Lima, the Secret on Violent, the Athna on Despair, the Rocky on Despair. There's a lot of those kind of units going on. Also locking in the Dark Demon where it seemed fit. Whereas Charge was playing a lot of other things. He normally plays a lot more towards Silver, but did see that especially if your enemy is first picking Juno, you probably don't want to be betting any kind of Silver anytime soon. But let's see if he goes more towards the Silver kind of playstyle, or he also goes towards more of a speed comp, because in the end, that is an option as well, knowing that your enemy is more looking towards Despair and Violent on speedy units.
Yeah, and I also was appreciating how aggressive Tech Deck was getting in his games too. So I'm excited to see if maybe he brings that in here. You kind of want to do something like that though, because I mean, a best of one situation is just first person to get a win gets that point. It's like that. You want to be surprising. You want to bring that aggression. I'm excited to watch this.
Yeah, absolutely. Best of one. That's actually in tournament setting. You don't get too much best of one, especially not if it's like a deciding factor for a best of one. So let's see what the two gentlemen will bring, and if they actually have like a chance to prepare against one another, or is this going to be full on a match of just muscle memory? In the end, they have prepared against one another before, because they actually did play in the league earlier in one of the other days, so they are at least slightly familiar with one another's playstyle.
Let's see how well they can recall that information on the fly. Here we go, everybody. Last game of the day, the tiebreaker, best of one, Tech Deck versus Charge here at day 7 of the Summoners War European League for 2025. Last day before the playoffs. This is it. This is going to be real fun. Tech Deck won the coin flip, so he will be taking the first pick going into the game.
Yeah, let's see what that would be for first pick. Tech also does like to take the first pick in this case. Is he gonna go back to a Heigang first pick? And did Charge actually see the matches Tech was playing earlier and then just maybe pre-bans that Heigang? Because so far Tech has been every time going on a Heigang first pick.
Yeah, that's true. You're so right about that. And it looks like Charge picked up on the trend, is throwing the Heigang onto the bench in the pre-ban phase. And unlike other SWC mode games, we're not going to see him make a return. This is it.
Yeah, let's see. So in this case, it is just a match for the seeding. So in the end, both players did already make it in. But let's see who wants to take. Still, in the end, you want to win. Everyone wants to win. So let's see what kind of playstyle, or if they're maybe just switching things up altogether.
Yeah, dude, you got to win this one. It's the last game of the day. This is what people are going to remember of you going into the playoffs. You're right, though. Both of these players have already made it, so there's nothing major at stake just besides the bragging rights as well as the seeding. So Charge, locking in a ragdoll, actually. That's a little bit more reserved than I was expecting.
Well, in the end, it does make sense into what Tech normally likes to bring. He does like to bring that Athena, AoE crits, Lars, AoE crits. So the Ragdoll, where it was in the position where it was picked in, not that great, it now already looks pretty good. So I definitely actually like that position right there. Would you also like to go towards more of a Federica, or is Charge just finding all of the LDs that he has in his box right now?
Good question. Predictive Ragdoll paying off here. Tech Deck with the 4th and 5th slots and Elsharion. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely a unit you don't see all too much. It is definitely a very strong unit, but then it's mostly a strong unit paired with something along the lines of an Adriana. Sure, there's that secret right now, but that does also make it where your Elsharion is going to be a lot slower than you would normally like it to be.
That's a good point. And now Tech Deck taking this down to time and ultimately choosing an Angela, that wind pure vanilla cookie. So you'll get some more shields, you'll get some healing and cleanse, as well as a little reflect damage. Great when there's not a ton of healing on the enemy team. I don't know if it's going to be that impactful here. It might have just been kind of a last second pick. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's definitely a bruiser pick that might be strong into the enemy, but then again, I'm not sure if you're going to have enough damage throughout. Like, we have seen the Lars do an okay-ish amount of damage when it takes enough turns. But are you going to be able to take that many turns against the Miying in this case?
It's all on Lars for Tech Deck, and Charge has the very beloved now Miying on his team. Let's see what this Secret can cook up on turn 1. Probably not too much, considering we don't have the strip opportunity from Elsharion.
Yeah, but also my eyes are on that Vivachel. Vivachel's gonna take a very comfortable position, moving all the way after all of the enemies. So you would have to make work of that Vivachel, because right after this Angela, Vivachel's moving, and that's going to be a dead unit right there.
Oh man, look at this. Tech Deck setting up shop right here. Here comes Vivachel's big 3rd skill. Can kind of do whatever here for Charge.
Going on to that Vanessa, so we don't have to kill things twice. We also once again have that start and the end skill. So there was a sleep, but you can instantly remove that sleep with this skill. Also a good amount of protection, so you don't even have to switch with the Pader right now. Big question is, how big is that shield, and can Miying and Pader break it right now?
That was the thing, and we saw Charge hesitate on there too. I think there was a very strong part of his psyche that wanted to use skill 2 to strip the shield away, but it was good that he held that.
Yep, but in the end, Miying did connect that armor break on the very first hit, and then simply Miying does so much damage. So now all eyes are on Lars for the side of Tech Deck. Can you actually do enough with the Lars in this case? Because Lars does a good amount of damage the moment you armor break, but the additional damage is there, but the armor breaks ain't gonna happen.
No, there's not a good opportunity for him to really show off that armor break. Tech Deck's not out yet, but let's see. That Lars needs to keep using skill 2, needs to keep proccing too. Let's see what happens. Here comes Miying with the counterattack setup, so that way he can try to weave in a defense break on the Lars next time he moves.
Yeah, that's actually a really good counter on the Lars right there. Also, we have that 3rd skill from the Vader, providing immunity when the immunity wasn't there from the Lima. And there's just so many buffs on the side of Charge right now, and Tech Deck doesn't have any form of stripping it.
Yeah, Charge is doing a great show right now, showing he would like to be placed higher, wants that 5th slot right now. And here, Lars, proccing again. This is the time to do it.
Yeah, this is the time to do it, but you're not really taking out that Ming. And last time you at least had a shield, but this time you don't have a shield. You once again get double counted. At least no armor break on it, but it's whittling down a lot of damage onto that Lars right now.
It is, man. Like, just look at the return damage. And he's, he's holding off on using skill 2 as he should because he just can't take the heat anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those units, like, I'm not sure what he's been eating, but it's a lot of violent runes. He's been taking a lot of additional turns, but it's one of those things like, sure, I want to be using my skill 2 right now. I have the opportunity, but that Ming is just being so strong with that counter.
The people in chat calling for a strip on Lars now. They want him to AoE strip on that skill 2 with infinitely reduced cooldown time. I don't know. Maybe Tech making the case for himself here because he is a real fun unit to watch.
It's definitely a fun unit to watch, but doesn't it become like a Kraka with a passive at that moment, which would be maybe a little bit too much?
It's a little much. It would be a little bit much. Oh, and here we go. Charge, proving Mi Ying is a little too much for the average account here. Look at that, man. Charge going ahead in our last tiebreaker game of the day, say.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that victory, well, we did already mention it. We have our 8 players being confirmed in the playoffs, as that is going to be on the 12th and 13th of April. But then again, also the players that did not make it to the playoff are very well played. They made it all the way for like 7 days. They qualified in the first place, so they had to go through all of the qualifications. They were here for a reason, and all of them did play very well.
Nice. Awesome. So final scores there. Charge is at 5th, Tech at 6th, but you can rest assured, like Slaix said, that they are both qualified. We have our top 8 now. Pretty incredible. That was a great showing today, huh, Say?
Yeah, absolutely. I did enjoy the matches a lot. And it was also cool to see for a balance patch, because this balance patch came around the time when there is no actual RTA going on. There's just Special League going on. And within Special League, currently, you can't test your new units with the LD5s as well. Sure, you can test it in Goodwill, but you can't really test it that much on the leaderboards that you would normally like to do. So it's definitely also the question, who can adapt the best? And in the playoffs, I think we're going to see a lot more of the units that did work out and a little bit less of the units that did not work out. So I'm looking at Shiho and Okeanos, and then in their own respect, one did work out and the other one did not work out that much.
Yeah, Shiho like had a lot of pressure on him today, and he didn't really perform as well. But I love what you said, man. This is a great test bed. It was for all the changes that happened in the balance patch. You know, it was great to see. I'm glad Okeanos is back. I missed him. It felt wrong to have him out of the meta for so long. Look at this, guys. Here we go. Here is the finalized leaderboard going into the playoffs here, Say.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did mention it before. 11 was the number to aim for, and 11 is exactly the number that it is. It's also interesting to see that there's 2 players at 16 and then 2 players at 13. So in the end, the scores are still really close to one another.
Everybody placed real close. Like, these games were very tight, and it was really fun to watch for that reason. There's clearly a lot on the line for these guys, and all the players did such a great job. So next, obviously, now that we've got our confirmed leaderboard, our top 8, the only thing left to do is put them in a bracket. So these are going to be playoffs. Day 1 and day 2, as you can see, Pinkroid and Malignant get a bye. You know, if you put more work in, on the qualifiers, that means that you get a little further placement in the actual playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. They even get 2 buys because Slaix and Crispy Bacon also have a buy for the first round. But we have a buy on Pinkroid and Malignant for 2 rounds already. And they also have a chance to go into a position where they lose 1 match but still can make it to the final. So that's the top 2 position is definitely very crucial right there. But it's also, once again, interesting to see we have Charge and Scribble duking it out in that first round. And we have Tech and Best Spoon.
Wow, it's going to be a big day 1. Don't miss it. And best of 7 throughout, man. That's a lot of time to adapt to what your opponent's bringing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also going to be the question. Like, if I'm looking at that first match, Charge is known to play a lot of different units, whereas Scribble really likes to have a core set of units, maybe 20, 25, and just make his work way around there. So that's going to be the big question. Best of 7, is it then better to have 60, 70 units runed up, or actually still go for just 20, 30?
It's a great question. Folks in chat, very happy to report we got one more coupon code for you today. Road to Playoffs. Go ahead and get yourself 100k mana as well as 2 more mystical scrolls. We had folks in chat a second ago too talking about how they actually got 5 stars off that first scroll.
And yet, like I said, all you need is one scroll, and then you translate this into LDs, and then all you need is one scroll. It can happen. It can happen.
You called it, man. Yeah, all you ever need is one. That's the magic number. It's in there somewhere. I like to joke, it's like it's all on the wrist, dude. It's like the Nat 5 is somewhere in there. Just got to find it. That was great. So good luck to everybody with the scrolls. And man, today has been so much fun, man.
Yeah, also, thanks for having you here, because that was something I wasn't expecting as well, because normally we were doing this with Sam. We also had Sean B here at the start of the league days as well, so definitely a little bit of switch up is nice. So good to see you here on the European channels as well, and hope to see more of you too.
It was great to be here. I had so much fun. It's always a blast doing anything with you, man. It was a pleasure getting to cast. Thank you again to everybody for watching. This again has been day 7. We'll see you right back here for the playoffs. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.